So I've been here since the very beginning, and love Keller Williams. It's a great company. One of the greatest things about Keller Williams is it's a very sharing organization. I worked for 2 other brokerages before coming to Keller Williams, Remax, and before that, Northside Realty. Does anybody remember that name? Who's been here long enough to remember Northside Realty? You know,
My cousin bought the name of that.
What's that?
My cousin bought the name when the Isaacson sold it.
Oh, really? Huh. So Northside was started by Senator Johnny Isaacson's son, or father, excuse me, and then Johnny Isaacson managed and ran it until he got into politics and ultimately became our senator. And then I went to Remax. And the reason I bring up these companies, and not as much Northside, but Remax, but it's very competitive, kind of, you don't leave information out for fear of other agents might take it and cannibalize it and use it against you. Not always and not everybody, but it just didn't have the sharing atmosphere that Keller Williams has. So I've written my name and my phone number and my email up there. You guys are welcome to write it down. I always share this in the beginning of this class. And you know, none of this stuff that we're doing is rocket science. There's just a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of different elements, from working from buyers to sellers, construction, finance, the forms, the legal aspect. So oftentimes you just need to bounce ideas off people. And you know, Brad's always available, but you're welcome to give me a call. I'm happy to talk you through things if you get into a pinch. There's also, you know, we're a profit sharing company. Every one of us in here has a sponsor, somebody who is responsible for bringing us in. You can contact your sponsor too. They're a good resource for questions. So any questions so far? Yes.
Do you have a particular area that you work in? Because I feel like I've seen your signs quite a bit.
I primarily focus right here in Dunwoody and Sandy Springs, but it's not uncommon to go to Forsyth or out to Mableton or Austell, or I've been down to Fairburn, Georgia. So depending on the opportunity, I may pursue it or I may refer it out. Interestingly enough, it was funny, when I first got into business in 1993, I went on a listing presentation. Come on in.
Thank you, sir.
And I went to talk to the sellers, like, I see your signs everywhere. I want to do business with you. I'm like, who's he talking to, you know? And there was a Icon agent who worked for Remax also up in Gwinnett called Tom Hlass, H-L-A-S-S. And somehow he had me confused. So I just kind of went with it. And, and I got the listing and I sold it. And I never really said, I don't think I'm the person that you thought I was, but everything worked out well.
Yeah.
The reality is what you got to do is you got to fake it till you make it in this business. And rely on the resources of all the agents with the experience in this office. You know, you've probably heard this before, but you don't have to tell people that I'm brand new in real estate. Say I'm affiliated with an office with 8,000 years of experience combined, or whatever it is. I think Felicia has well, you might want to tone that down a little to make it a little more realistic. But you get the idea. You sell the even though you're an independent contractor and you're basically working on your own, you know, the consumer does not necessarily make that connection. And you can utilize the power and the experience of the office as a way to bridge that gap. Does that make sense? All right, so I don't know, I've done this course like 10 or 15 times, and I started being very regimented in following the curriculum. And I would get dragged in and we'd start talking about other things. So I've kind of created more of a hybrid. And I share, primarily we're going to talk a lot about the different tools and resources, a lot of it technology oriented, that we use to sell listings. And you know, the course material, we all have access to it, and it's pretty self-explanatory. So if you look through it and there are any questions, let me know. But we're going to probably go off the beaten path from what's actually in the agenda for today. And I'm going to share with you some things that I think will be helpful in your business. We'll get into it here in a second, but if you do have technology, a laptop, you can take this tiny URL And if you can't read it, let me know. We can read it out. Those are all lowercase letters. And it's what that'll bring you to is a Google Drive page that looks like this. And these are some of the resources that I want to talk about today. Some of these you may have already been exposed to in some of the previous classes. And all the blue ones are hyperlinks. Now, Patsy, you're going to have access to this, but a lot of these are, you're already set up with some of these vendors just because you're affiliated with the office. So some of it may not lead you to the direct links where you can actually see this stuff. But at least you'll have a listing here, and you're welcome to call me and we can go through it further. So we're going to do that, but we're also going to follow the curriculum in the beginning at least just to get started. So can everybody read that? It's tinyurl.com, Y6QQBYUD. Did it work for everybody? Did anybody try it?
It's great.
That's a Google Drive. I use a variety of different, I try to not have any paper. I mean, I have it and then I either scan it and I put it in a variety of different places. I'm a big fan of Google Drive. I also use Dropbox and I also use Evernote. So I use a variety of different tools, not only to manage my business, but to share information. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But you can actually take any Word doc or spreadsheet or PowerPoint type document and you can publish it to the internet and it becomes actually its own little web page, and that's what I did here. But it had a really, really long URL, so I went to tinyurl and I plugged that in and it kicked out that one, so it isn't like 50 characters long.
I'm sorry, is that Y6GG or 99?
QQ.
Oh, QQ. No wonder I can't get it. I got a Chinese thing.
All right, so selling your listings, let's get started. Expectations, action reveal. So we go through here. You guys, I'm not gonna, one of the things I don't do is we don't make the calls. It's like referred to in the course material. But I do want to know how you're doing with your contacts and your note cards and previewing homes. How's everybody doing on that? Who's previewed some homes? Yeah? How's it going? What do you think? Doesn't it help when
It's
you can
helpful.
actually get out there and see houses?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because what you can do too is you can go into FMLS's matrix and you can, has everybody taken the matrix course that shows you how to do portals where it sends information out on listings? FMLS has some really good courses and some of them are designed around their products. You know, when I say matrix, I'm talking about the database of all the listings. But one of the most powerful tools that you can utilize, and there's a lot of different ways to do it, is Matrix's, it's called their portal. You set it up and you do a search and you can actually set it up where you can email those listings to a client. But it can also be an auto email where once you set those parameters, it'll continue to send those new listings that come up either from being brand new or it might be a price reduction and now it falls within the filter of what the price you have established. Variety of different things can make it come up. And you can do different statuses. You can do active, you can do pending, you can do sold, you can do expired. So that's a really good tool that you can have working for you that communicates with prospective buyers and sellers. It was really designed for buyers, but you can use it for sellers too, and even sphere of influence. So it's sending that information out. I've had numerous people tell me, I got your email at like 3 in the morning last night. Do you ever sleep? I'm like, I got to be honest with you, this is an automated system. I look at everything that comes out, but I don't actually send it out. But it's there working for you. And the reason why I bring this up at this point in time is if you go out and those listings that you do preview, you can set yourself up in that matrix system as your own client. And you can add those listings and you can add the different statuses. And one of the fascinating things to do, and it also gives you confidence and market knowledge, is to follow those listings from when they're active to their natural progression. Does a market reject it? Does it expire without getting a contract and sold? Does it go under contract and then does it sell? And it's really good to follow that. You've seen that house, and then, when you follow it through and you see it go under contract and you see it sold, like, wow, okay, that one was listed for $650, it's sold for $660. It's like, wow, this one sold overpriced. Just gives you more market knowledge, and you can set yourself up so you're getting those emails just like you were a consumer. You're setting it up not as an agent, but like you use one of your other emails, not your primary one that the system has. So previewing, another good previewing hint, and it's kind of changed now with this showing time. We used to not have that, but that's that automated system where you can schedule your showings, is to do a search by vacant homes and have that in your briefcase. And when you're out and about, utilize that, because a lot of them will say anytime access. And so you don't have, an appointment doesn't have to be made with a seller. It's just good for market awareness. You're driving by that area anyway, you might as well pop in this house and check it out. Gives you additional ammunition to write off all of your business mileage too, as you're conducting business, even if you're going to bring a kid to a baseball game, if you need to do that.
Yeah.
So previewing is important, so do that, follow up, watch the houses, see what happens to them. Look at the full picture though and see where it ends up, and it'll help you build that market knowledge, because market knowledge is gonna give you what?
Listings.
It's gonna give all that, but it's gonna give you confidence. All of a sudden you feel good, you feel good about when you talk to people, and you're like, yeah, that house, I knew that, I was inside that, it got listed back in March and, and under contract, and you follow it, notice, make a mental note of how much closing costs there were. It's just kind of fills in all the gaps and makes you much more confident and informed. All right, so we got note cards. Tell me about note cards. Who's doing their note cards? Really, who's doing their note cards?
I have some.
I bought them yesterday.
Yeah?
I got overzealous. Got coached to slow it down.
Really?
Yeah.
Who said to slow it down?
Because I wasn't doing like the phone call, the note card. I was kind
Right.
of plugging it into my 8x8, and I'm figuring out the best way to do it. So now I have a lot of phone calls to make next week.
That's important, but the fact that you're doing, I would rather be an overachiever than not do it at all.
I used to work for a paper company and love writing notes.
Right.
I think it's a lost art, so I got overzealous.
Well, they get open for sure. How many people check their mail over a trash can, And we're a big believer in personal notes, cutting through the clutter and getting to people. Now, the more time you spend here, Brad Feynman, our team leader, he's a big believer in what in addition to the personal notes. You've been here a while. What do you get from him a lot?
Adding context?
What's that?
I said adding context to your database.
That's important, but once you have the context, has anybody gotten a personal text from Brad?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
So there's a variety of different technologies out there where you can do it in a more automated fashion, but I never miss, all of our family, no matter who it is, all of our kids, our team leader Brad, will get a text in the morning congratulating us on our child's birthday or our birthday, our anniversary. He doesn't hesitate to send out other, interesting texts at different times that are, for holidays, Thanksgiving and whatnot. And that also is a way to cut through the clutter of all that information. Emails, oftentimes they go to spam and whatnot. Not to say that it doesn't work, but a personal text, and if you're regular, it's just another way to be top of mind and to touch those people in your database. So texting is a phenomenal tool. Yes.
What is some of the text technology that can give those automatic text reminders?
So I don't do it as much as Brad does it, but and the interesting thing is technically you can have some of the tools you don't even have to be doing it. You could have an assistant actually doing it on your behalf. But it kind of falls into two categories, and it depends whether you have an iPhone or an Android. I have an Android, and Group SMS is the one I use, and the free version is pretty capable, but it's like a couple bucks unless they change the model to buy the pro version. And you can actually set up groups, and it talks to your Gmail contact list. And that particular one, Group SMS, allows you to merge in like people's first names, so it becomes more personalized. And then when it sends the text out, this is the important thing, it does not send it out as a group text. So if I sent it to all of you guys, you'd each get an individual text from me, versus some of the things some of the products you have to be aware of. It creates a group text.
There's
where-
35 people in your text.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
that
don't
was
want to
nice.
do that. So that's Group SMS. Now, on a second level is what I use every day, and I love this, and I'll just tell you about it now. This is in our list, is I use, and there's an Apple version for it, I'm sure, but I use My SMS. And for me, I'm always on my phone, but I find it's much easier to text, especially if you have to have a little bit lengthy message from your computer. So this syncs directly. Every time if I have to send a text out, I can type it out on my computer. Who uses something like this?
Well, iMessage, Apple is the same.
iMessage, yeah. So,
But it would be nice if you could find a way to use both, where the Android and the iMessage, you could, because iMessage doesn't pick up the Android text.
I got a solution.
Yes.
Get rid of your iPhone.
Get rid of your Android.
Android crosses over, so it's not proprietary, but just the
So
Apple
you
products.
get, if you do an SMS message, then yours syncs automatically with the iPhone people too.
Yeah, it's just, it's like a text. So this is my family string here. My daughters have iPhones, and when I send something out
Well,
from
if
here.
they have an so if there's an iPhone in it, I get it.
Yes.
But if there's not, do you still get the iMessage? Do you still get the message?
What, from an Android?
Yeah.
No.
No, not on your
I-
computer, correct? Okay.
Um,
Listen to this guy now. He might look like an old geek, but he's pretty damn smart.
I agree.
Okay, so all I'm going to tell you is do your note cards. I think you're supposed to turn them into me. I'm not going to. If you guys don't tell, I won't tell. Yeah, I'm not going to put you in timeout or anything. But you guys need to do those note cards. It's all part of the major plan. Everything comes together if you follow all the elements. All right. Previewing homes, contacts, adding contacts to your database. We're all doing that.
Yeah.
In Keller Williams, there's a moniker out there and training around it. Your business is your database. And there's dozens of different ways to pursue this business, whether you want to do for sale by owners, expired listings, open houses. But the quickest way to success is to create a database of met people that you know and you communicate with them regularly. And we have two systems, one for Mets and one for not Mets. You guys have already gone through this part, right? What is it, how many touches per year?
33.
33
Is
touches.
it really? Is it 30? See, I've never taken this class.
Okay. Yeah, there was research done, and the optimal amount of touches, and that could be a phone call, an email, a text, something in the mail, is 33 times per year to stay top of mind with your sphere of influence. And there's a lead up to that. There's something called an 8x8, which is 8 touches over 8 weeks, and that's for people that you just meet. And then when that is done, you convert them into the 33 touch. It's kind of like on steroids, it kind of compresses things. And then if you have people you don't meet, does anybody know the ratio on that? How many times you're supposed to touch them a year? It's 12. It's 12 times. You're on Mets, and hopefully they'll turn into Mets, and then you move them into those other categories. And if you go and you read the red book, which I don't have a copy of it in here, but a Millionaire Real Estate Agent, you've all seen that?
Yeah.
And that was actually based on interviews that Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, one of the other executives Keller Williams did, with agents that netted over $1 million in commission, not just Keller Williams agents, but all across the industry, what systems they used. And these are and there's actual ratios, like, and I don't know those off the top of my head, but if you do the 12 times a year to somebody you don't met, there's a percentage that that you will get a certain amount of business out of that, but they refined it down. So all this stuff is based on trial and error. All right. Lead generation habit, 10 new contacts, 10 people, 10 no's. And then weekly preview, 10 homes. So I'm assuming you guys are all doing that. Now is when you're supposed to get out your phone and lead generate for 20 minutes. Now, I will not tell Stacy that we're not making the calls if you guys promise me you'll do these calls sometime in the next 24 hours. All right? Everybody say, I promise.
No problem.
Have you guys been making the calls in class usually? No. Handwritten notes, you're supposed to turn them in. We talked about that. Get your head in the game. Marketing and servicing your listings. Okay, the curriculum on this, on the agenda really falls into these three categories: staging the property, marketing the listing, and communicating with sellers. There's also 3 videos that are part of this. They take up a good part of the time, and we're not going to look at those. Everybody in here except Patsy has access to that because they have KW credentials to go into the website. Patsy, I'll figure out a way for you to be able to watch these. But they're primarily, I think, 2 staging and 1 open house video. All right? So, let's just talk about staging briefly here. Has anybody looked at what we were going to cover today? And they want to share with me and help me teach this on why staging is important.
I haven't done that, but I have a question
Yes.
that you might cover later, but I just want to set it up. I was talking with my husband yesterday about like the cost that we incur that I just kind of didn't really realize. So are we gonna, it might happen at the end, get a better understanding, or would love your expertise on understanding when to do what and how much? Because if your biggest opportunity is in the first week and you were gonna sell it anyway, you might not need to spend all that money. So just kind of give some tips or hints from experience on how to determine that.
Did everybody hear the question? So it's like what to do and when to do it.
Like what's most critical in determining, like,
So I'll answer that in a couple ways. Number one, different companies operate different ways. Some of our counterparts or competitors, right or wrong, they have very regimented, come on in, they have very regimented systems that you follow as an agent. And they undertake some of the marketing on your behalf. Keller Williams' philosophy is more of a return that money to the agent and let them use it the way they see best fit. We typically have more money to work with versus at some of the traditional companies, they charge much higher splits. So you've got discretion on how you're going to do it. And I think if you went and you interviewed 10 of the top agents in here, you're going to get 10 different answers. There's no one right or wrong answer. Is what I will tell you is that, and I work with my wife Kathy, she's a licensed agent too, concerning this particular area, our personal philosophy is that we want our listings to be 100% ready when we put it in FMLS and pull the trigger. How many times have you, just as new agents, been looking on the MLS and there's no picture or one picture of a house? I mean, that is like suicide. And that agent, I mean, unless there's some really good reason, I would personally delay bringing it on the market if I didn't have all the pictures ready. Because you only have a chance to be new once. So, and the pictures drive everything. It's not, they not only will tell you, people are making decisions on houses that they want to see based on the pictures, but they're also making decisions on what houses they don't want to see.
And also
too.
the price.
Well, the price, you're going to have the price to enter it into the MLS, but you don't have to have pictures.
No, but so I have a question about, so I've seen some things before where I've gone by and I see it says coming soon.
Yes.
And I think that is a really nice thing to do, especially if the house is up for some type of remodeling.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you actually can give a new buyer the opportunity to say, I want the floors this way, if they call you, before it's actually listed on the MLS.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, first of all, you need to talk to Stacy and Lynn LaCroix, our compliance person, because we have contractual agreements with the MLSs.
Right.
And they say that technically, once a listing agreement is signed, and it also can be interpreted that when the sign-ins yard, it should be entered into the computer within 48 hours. So some of these folks are not really in compliance with the FMLS.
Okay, so when I see those signs, they may or may not be compliant. Okay.
Right, and I mean, I think it's a good thing, you're generating buzz, but you can do it too early too and shoot yourself in the foot. Like, certainly within a few days of listing it, I don't think it's necessarily a bad
Okay.
strategy to have. In some cases, it frustrates buyers too, because they want more information.
Sure.
And they can't get it. But just be aware that FMLS does have guidelines as far as once a listing is taken, how it has to be entered into their system, and that is also driven by the sign in the yard. There's been countless discussions, you know, in team meetings and stuff about this, so. Any other questions? Yes.
So it seems like that nationally, like 10 years ago, staging wouldn't have been a part of a class like this. And that, it's like, so why has staging become more important? And if real estate is like locally based, where would you rate this area in terms of the buyer's expectation of staging versus some other part of the country, like Iowa, you know, for example? I'm just, you know, the perspective of how
So,
it came about.
I would say we've been using a stager for at least 10 years, maybe 15. I mean, it is maybe more top of mind. It's more on the radar of real estate. I don't know, part of it I think has to do with some of these television shows like Flip and whatnot have normalized it and made it more popular. You know, there's two kinds of staging is what you have to remember. Can anybody tell me like the two basic categories?
I haven't heard, but I'm gonna guess decluttering is one.
No, and this isn't.
Vacant or lived in?
That's basically
Okay.
what
That's
it
what
is.
I would
But
say.
you got
If you have a vacant home.
you got vacant home. And Patsy, if I can, I'm going to just share if you're okay. So Patsy and her husband, who has a construction company, bought a house here in Dunwoody and Kingsley Elementary, a split level, and with the intent of improving it and reselling it for a profit, i.e. a flip. So that house is all, it looks perfect on the interiors, on the exterior too, but you know, I mean, there's some exterior staging, but it's primarily addressed in the interior. That type of staging involves bringing in furniture and accessories and artwork to make the home look more desirable. I mean, all you really need to think about is when you list a house, it becomes a product, like a packaged product, like any kind of other consumer good. And there's a reason why Ashton Woods is building Aria down here, you know, that community, or Toll Brothers, any of the big builders, or even small builders, why when they build out a community, they have a furnished model. It's to allow people to see themselves living in the home. It's to evoke positive emotions. So you got that kind of staging, which is basically vacant home staging. Oftentimes it's because of its new construction or a flip, but not always. It could just be a resale. And then the other extreme or other side of staging we see a lot of here in Dunwoody, because a lot of the houses were built in the 70s and 80s. And in some cases, some of these homeowners have not done anything other than accumulate a ton of stuff. And those two things together are in conflict with selling a home. So that type of stager, and there are some stagers that only focus on this resale type of occupied home, and there's others that focus on, they have warehouses of furniture, and that's what they do. And they understand that the furniture needs to get out there quick, and they understand that when it goes under contract and sells, it needs to be picked up and moved out quick, so everything's in a compressed time frame. And it's just two different disciplines. Some of them kind of do both and do it well. But we probably use the staging of because we do more resales, whereas occupied homes than not, where they come in and it's primarily decluttering, but it's also doing certain updates, and it really can be a challenge because some of these homes, they need so much work. And, you know, you're doing it for two reasons. You know, your staging is to, you know, to hopefully net a higher price and to have the home sell quicker. And oftentimes a seller will look at it on a return on investment of money only. And, you know, sometimes, you know, it is hard to justify that, to pay for it, even though statistics show that they sell much quicker and for a higher price. But people buy on emotion, not on logic, and you know, you just see it happen over and over again. There's been houses in my career that I've seen that were listed and they are unsuccessful. One agent, they change it, it gets staged. It's happened to us on a couple of occasions, and it sells.
Let me interrupt again. Anybody in here want to attend the senior PGA tournament up in Sugarloaf this week? Any day?
What days?
Any day. It's good for any day.
Are you serious?
Yeah. How many people we got?
I just had me that'll go.
We-
Probably
we
maybe
did-
2. That's it.
There we go.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
I'm a heritage guy.
How many people will you? Two. How many about you?
2. But I'll take one. I'll just take one.
Here, I'm gonna flip a coin with you too. Who has a coin? Who has a coin?
I have a coin.
All right, flip. Call it.
All right, wait till it's in your hand.
He's flipping.
Oh, you the flip?
Yeah.
Heads. Heads.
What is it?
Tails.
One inch it. There you go. Like Don Watson, Daly's in it. So, yeah, should be good.
Thank you.
There we go.
All right. So, you know, the statistics in our curriculum, 32% of realtors report a 1 to 5% increase in offers, and we're talking about staged homes. 16% of realtors report a 6 to 10% increase in the offer, in increases in offers, and then a smaller percentage, 11 to 15%.
And I have another question, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Well, not really a question, but, so, let's say you stage the home, and the company that you use stages it beautifully, and the buyers wanna buy it with the furniture in it.
Yeah. I've had that come up a couple times, and the answer is typically no, but
Okay,
I think it's on a case by case. I
Okay.
mean, these staged homes where they bring in furniture, the people typically don't live there. They don't like to do that, you know,
Right.
with pets and people there. And after a certain amount, so it doesn't get very much wear and tear other than moving it in and
so
out.
I'm saying, so they might
But
wanna
they
buy
do
it.
rotate it out sometimes,
Right.
but I think they try to have like package sets, so.
Okay,
But it would
Okay.
be interesting. But to answer your question, Patsy, I think it's a lot of it's like a supply and demand. Like if you go over to, come on in, how we doing?
Good,
Sell your listing, Ignite, right? That's what you're here for?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, come on in. I'm Bill Haas, I'm teaching this today. What's your name?
I'm Helen.
Helen, thanks for coming. So, like California, when it's on fire, some of these markets that, you know, they've got 25 offers. I mean, I don't think that it is as necessary, or, you know, it's gonna sell anyway. But it does help on the value. I mean, so it's just another investment. It's a way to differentiate yourself from your competition.
Like it doesn't hurt, but it may or may not.
It may not, I mean.
Matter.
It may not matter. And, you know, it's just, we try to present options to sellers and give them information to help them decide. That's what your job is. It's not for you to decide, but to present options. And it's ultimately their decision, as is the price and other factors. We've just seen that it works, you know, and that a good stager who's not an interior designer but is trained on how to package a house to sell, not necessarily to live in, can come up with some really great ideas and make a house which is the product look better. I mean, usually it happens over and over again when we stage these houses. A lot of times on the resale ones, not necessarily they're bringing in furniture. But the stage were like, well, let's put this piece of furniture over here and put that piece of artwork there. It's like, I never would have thought of that in like a million years. And then it gets done and you're like, wow. Or this one house, it had like this couch with these cushions that they just didn't work. They were like destroyed, or I can't remember exactly what it is. But she came up with some creative way that saved the seller money to make that whole couch work by, it wasn't as simple as flipping the cushions, but it was something like that. And it was like, man, that's brilliant. I never would have thought of that. And, you know, it ended up saving the seller some money versus, costing it. But I just, there's an agent who used to be in this office, and geographically she moved to Buckhead, but Lisa Vale, she's a great agent. She's got a vocabulary like a sailor. She's just a piece of work. But her business proposition when she talks to sellers is, I will not list your house unless you stage it. I mean, it's mandatory for her, whether it's vacant or that resale, kind of repurposing, decluttering. And without staging it, she won't even take the listing. So, and she's very successful. It just helps you as an agent get the job done. You want to put everything, hedge your bets of being successful. Because you only get paid if it closes, right? So the more things that you can do that helps the seller but also helps you is a win-win for everybody. All right.
When it's a vacant listing, how many rooms?
I think you would get different. You would get different answers from different people and stagers, but typically, kitchen and master are really important, but I see like living room, dining room too. I don't worry about all the extra bedrooms when we do it. Don't worry about the basement necessarily.
I would say that where your entrance is also, because as
First
soon as you
impression.
enter,
Yeah.
you go, wow.
A lot of times that you're looking right in there and so I use this Christina Bell's No Vacancy. In fact, I think I've got some of these stages on here. Let me switch gears here. Okay, yeah. So for those of you that just came in, if you write this web address down, it's a short URL that leads you to a Google Drive page, and it has all of this on here, and the blue links are hyperlinks. And we're going to kind of move into this, and we'll talk about staging. So here are some of the staging companies that we use and recommend. No Vacancy. Patsy just had a conversation with their principal, Christina's Bell. Her name starts with a K, and it's got a Z in it, even though it's Christina. So I always mess that up. But they have a big warehouse full of all kinds of furniture. And that's their business. They also she has a number of designers that work with her that do resale ones. Divine Redesigns is Michelle Yackel. She does a great job. I think she's just teamed up with somebody, and she does furniture too, but she does a lot of just resale. Ooh La La. And if you download this, you can click the link and go to their websites. Interior Revivals is Melanie Sarah. She's been doing it for a long time. I think she was one that did your house in Saddleview. And she is accomplished. She actually teaches staging to people that want to enter into that industry. So that's how experienced she is. And then Inspiring Interiors is Kathy Hans, and they're one of our preferred vendors here. They participate and help us out in the office. And they're all really good resources for the staging. So there's no rule of thumb or answer like you have to get staged. It's going to do a couple things for you. It's going to improve your pictures, and good pictures are going to drive traffic. And we all know is you can't really sell a house if you don't get any traffic. I mean, that's number one. You got to get people out there to look at it.
How often are you seeing agents offering to pay for staging? Because I'm getting marketed by somebody, and she's like, I include that in my service. And it's just like, whoa.
Well, you got to think about if you do intend to offer it as an agent, what you're offering, because there's different elements of staging.
That's true.
Seller that doesn't necessarily understand 100% what you're talking about, and they say, okay, well, you're going to you're gonna pay to have my house painted and redo the hardwood floors? I'm gonna turn this off. So, but you do see some agents offering staging services. There are some agents that have actually taken advanced courses, so they have knowledge in that. It's not a bad thing to learn and to be able to provide a seller, just to have, like Lou Ann Gilmore in our office, if you talk to her, she's gone through some pretty significant staging certification. So she's just got to, she understands it. She doesn't have the furniture, or she doesn't have a warehouse worth of furniture, but creating like focal points and repurposing furniture. So you've got to be careful what you offer, but is what we do personally is, since we believe in it so much, is we offer to pay for the staging consultation. And is what we do though, so you get buy-in. This is what you'll find, and this is I think true in life. If you offer something for free, oftentimes the recipient devalues what they're getting and they don't take it seriously. So we say, you know what, we're happy to pay for the staging consultation. And each one of these is going to have a different fee structure, but it's typically somewhere between $250 and $450, depending on the size of the house and how much time it's involved. And that's just to go through and do an evaluation and report back to the seller on what needs to be done. But we say we will reimburse you at closing for that consultation fee. So worst thing that can happen is you pay for it and they don't do anything, and they think, you know, your stager was crazy. It's like, okay, well, that was a big waste of money. So this kind of creates a little accountability, gets them engaged so that they will execute. And nobody usually does 100% of what a stager recommends. It just isn't practical, especially on these resale houses. If you're bringing in furniture, it's usually package deals. That's a little different. But some of these older houses, they need a ton of work. And there's some houses out there that we've told sellers, look, I don't think you need to, I think you need to do a couple quick things and fluff it and buff it and put it on the market and sell it and not make investments. Because you'll have like this one house in Dunwoody Club Forest here that we were working with a seller. He had vinyl in his, like old vinyl in his kitchen still. And, he was talking about putting in hardwood floors there. Well, you put the hardwood floors in and somebody comes in, they've spent a bunch of money on that. And what do the buyers focus on then? They focus on the Formica countertops that are chipped up and the old cabinets and all the appliances are old. So maybe you do one more of those things. In some cases, and there may be disagreement with other agents on this particular philosophy, but in some cases I think you're better off selling it as is. Now, the two most inexpensive investments a seller can make that will have the best return on investment, number one is paint, and number two is carpet. And in some cases, just coming in and repainting and carpeting, like if a home is a wreck, and cleaning and decluttering, those three things, that's going to be your best bet. And then sometimes you'll work with a seller that they do not have the resources even to do that. There are vendors out there that will do like flooring on terms. The buyer or the seller would have to get like through a finance company that, like this one carpet company that I use sometimes, Excel Carpeting, they have a finance vendor. It used to be GE Capital. I don't think they do it anymore, but the consumer, the seller, can basically get 90 days same as cash. So the vendor gets paid, they got 90 days to sell it and pay it off, and then it starts accruing interest on that loan, because they're basically getting a consumer loan. So there's different ways to do it. While we're talking about staging, I think it's, and I don't have it on here, but if you write down a resource called boxbrownie.com, who's heard of that? Box Brownie, like the dessert. Boxbrownie.com is a Australian company, and they do virtual staging. And we did this on a house over here off of Nesbitt Ferry that we listed in the fall. the seller had done a bunch of renovations, and she was at the end of her rope. She didn't have any more energy or money to spend on prepping the house. And they were living there. And, you know, a lot of them, they did the kitchen, they did the master, the upstairs bathroom, repainted a lot. Otherwise, it still had a couple old pieces of furniture in there, and they were living there with a dog. So Box Brownie, we had our professional pictures taken, which we'll talk about photographers in a minute. And then we uploaded them to Box Brownie's website, and they went in and they took out the old furniture pieces in certain rooms. It's done on an image by image basis. And they, through Photoshop or some other graphic tool, added furnitures and artwork, and it's really amazing. They did, for us, they did, I think the living room, dining room, the basement, they put like a pool table and like a slot machine on the wall, I think. I mean, and it looked really cool. And and some exterior stuff out on the patio or out on the deck, to the point that they even had shadows like off the furniture. It was really good, and it's fairly reasonable. I think it's like $60 an image. And they also have other features like blue sky, like pillow clouds. So it's kind of a dark, dreary picture of the day. They'll inject these nice pillowy blue clouds and brighten up the blue sky. And we use those in our FMLS and in our print materials. You know, it's not as good as the real thing, because when people get out there, you know, they're buying on emotion. And we toyed with it. In some cases, we've said, you know, home is virtually staged for, I forget the language we use, but basically we wanted to just set the expectation that we wanted you to be able to see what the house looks like furnished, because it's primarily vacant. Or, you know, there's a lot of houses that are photographed that are have personal property, and the seller moves and the house is then vacant. So when people get out there, it doesn't look the same as it did in the pictures. So it's not necessarily, in my opinion, it's not like a bait and switch. There's nothing wrong with doing that. When you start taking out power lines with Photoshop and things of that nature, that I think kind of bridges the gap of what is ethical, in my opinion.
Bill, would you show on FMLS the picture of the house as is and then show it virtually staged? Because I could see somebody getting really angry that working against you if they get out there.
No,
and then they find out
other
it's
than the
a
fact that
thing.
depending on the style of the house, the virtual staging, you're paying on a per image basis. And a good real estate photographer like this room, they're not going to just take one picture here. They're going to photograph it from different angles. And so if they did it from 2 or 3 or 4 angles from 4 corners of the room, to have one where it's virtually staged and the other one not, I think that just shows some discontinuity. But you could do that. But no, I don't think, I personally see that there's nothing wrong with that. And we never got any negative feedback like, where's the pool table, you know, when buyers went out there and looked at it. So I have no problem not, and I don't think I would put them both side by side. You want to showcase the best of the house, you know, in my opinion. All right? So, and I think there's a couple other virtual staging resources out there, but that Box Brownie, they turn it around in just 2 or 3 days, and we found it to be really cool and a good resource. So I think we're going to move on from staging unless there's any more questions on staging. Watch the videos because they'll have more information, and part of it is information that will help you explain the value proposition to your sellers and the return on investment, which I think is helpful. That needs to be, you need to bridge that gap being a new agent, all right? And then just talk to other agents. Who are you using? When you go out and preview homes and you see a house that is obviously staged and vacant, some cases, there'll be a little placard there, the stager will like be marketing themselves. But call the listing agent, hey, who staged your house? If you like the style and the furniture that stager has, that's always a good way to build your list of resources. All right, photography. You know, we tell our home sellers, and I'm talking we, Kathy, my partner, my wife and I, that, you know, there's basically a couple of elements in a successful home sale. And having the right pictures is one of the key elements. The other one is pricing, and the other one is condition. It's like a three-legged stool, right? But pictures are so important. You know, when I got into the business back in 1990, 93 is when I started full-time, got my license in 90. You know, you would actually, the FMLS, you wouldn't believe how it worked. We'd have these phone books that they would deliver every month. And in it would be like black and white pictures of the listings. And you would look through the book to figure out what homes you would show. And it had one picture of the front of the house, like, you know, in black, smudgy ink. And that picture was taken by the MLS. They actually had photographers on staff. And it didn't matter if the garage door was open, the garbage cans had bags hanging out of it. That guy comes out, I don't even think he got out of his car, and, you know, snap the picture, boom. That goes into that book, you know, and that's not exactly real time. And then it got computerized, and it was like a DOS product, and we would be able to search for homes, and that helped a lot. But you guys we're a world ahead of that with the availability to really look at pictures, you know, and that's why open houses are still very important, and they're a very good resource for you as far as lead generation. But in many ways, the better graphical pictures, the virtual tours, the different resources that are out there have kind of done the heavy lifting, whereas people, the only way they could actually, you know, see a house, other than reading about it in a classified ad in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, was to go out and look at it. So having good images is so important. And there's a lot of good photographers out there. We actually have Virtuance is one of our allied partners here. They pay money to have access to you guys, and I've used them and I like them, and they're very good. But as Patsy knows, I always defer to Mary, and sometimes, now she's gotten popular. I've been with her for years. We've been using her for like 15 or 20 years. And now, especially in the busy season, you know, sometimes it's hard for us to get an appointment. And the thing I like about a good real estate photographer is, or I'll just say what I like about Mary is what differentiates her from some of the other folks out there. The extremes are somebody like her that's a true pro, to Bill Haas out there with my 8-year-old, and then this one isn't 8 years old, but like an 8-year-old Android or iPhone, you know, taking pictures in low resolution, you know, in the portrait mode. You guys see those in the FMLS, right? It's like, you know, here's the whole computer screen, and the picture is like this big because they didn't get the resolution right. I'm like, what do you got? You got to be kidding me. This is like one of the most important elements of servicing your client, doing a good job and promoting the house. So those are the two extremes. So Mary, she'll take and she'll do the professional photography, and she actually spends more time at home photoshopping and touching up pictures than she does on site taking the pictures. And we always make it a point to be at the listings when she's there. And we do so because, and usually I bring this book in, but we had this listing that was down in the Vineyards, and I'll just give you an example, which is in Dunwoody here, off of Dunwoody Club Drive. And it had plantation shutters all across the front. And she was photographing the outside first. And I was inside, so I wouldn't be in the pictures, and she's like, what do you want? What do you want? She's like, you got to go upstairs. Come out here, look up there. You got to go upstairs. That one bedroom, they weren't plantation shutters. They were like vertical blinds, but the real thick blade ones. Anyway, all the windows were even, like right at the half of the sash, except for this one where it was all the way down. And she's like, you gotta go fix that one window blind so they're all consistent. And it's like, that always stood out to me, like that is a level of perfection that I want in my real estate photographer. And yeah, 9 out of 10 photographers, they would have blown and gone, they just would have took the picture. But she's there and she has one of those paddles when she needs it that she puts over the camera. Most of the time she's shooting off a tripod, she's not walking around with a shaky hand, which means that she can do this type of photography where when she clicks the picture, it takes like 5 seconds to take the picture. So even like the darkest rooms come out super bright. And she just knows, you know, like when I used to take my own pictures, I thought it would be cool to have the lights and the ceiling fan moving. No, you don't want the ceiling fans going. And she'll tell you to turn them off. But we'll oftentimes have a staged home and we'll work with her and be there present for the photography shoot. She'll be like, and we got it down to a science. I'm like already thinking what she's saying. We'll be in the kitchen and she's like, okay, check for, you know, stuff we can use. So I'm looking for like the La Creuset big Dutch oven that's like bright red, or a cutting board with some tomatoes. And she'll be working like taking fruit and putting in a bowl, and if there's not enough stuff where it's elevated, she's got like, she'll ball up a newspaper and raise it up. So she does something I call micro staging. She comes in and she'll have, I remember one house, I had to empty out all these little perfume bottles and shampoo things that were all over the place. I had to go find a tray and move it. She's like, we can't photograph this like this. And to clean it up and make it look real streamlined. She just goes the extra mile, and the pictures, they feel good, they look good. It makes you want to go see it. She also has an investment in her equipment that most of, even the other real estate photographers don't have. And I couldn't tell you exactly what kind of lens she has, but she calls it an architectural lens. So between her photoshopping and the lens, she can take a room that may look like this with your average, even professional photographer, and it looks like this, and it doesn't have that fish eye type rounded edges. So I think the most you can, we had a $2.2 million listing at the end of Jet Ferry, and it was like $450. That's like the most you can spend with her. There's a lot of photographers that are cheaper, and she by no means is the only great photographer out there, but in my opinion, investing a little bit more money in good pictures is going to have an awesome return on investment, and it's well spent money. I'm always bummed when I can't get her and I have to use somebody else and they don't come out as good. And especially, I will even defer if it's a luxury listing, a higher end listing. Like, we got to wait till we get her. I'm not going to switch gears unless there's just some extenuating circumstances where the seller has to get it on the market. So anyway, that's my take on photography. One last thing on staging, and because I thought it was kind of tacky, but I've seen people, I know agents that have done it. Like, so you don't, you know, a lot of times the seller can at least come up with accessories and stuff to kind of soften up vacant houses, you know, like towels in the bathroom and accessories for like toothbrushes and that kind of stuff. Towels give good color contrast. Stuff in the kitchen. And we have some stuff, but it's probably now that we personally keep that we'll like loan out to sellers. But there's one agent, and she's not with this company, but she would just go shopping at Target and like freaking load up like 2 shopping carts full of stuff, towels and accessories and whatnot. And then I guess the return policy at Target is pretty liberal because after the house sells, she brings it all back, which I always feel guilty bringing stuff back to stores like I'm like doing something wrong, even if it's legitimate and I bought it there, you know, it's like, you own it now, why are you bringing it back? So anyway, take that with a grain of salt and know that that is something that is something that, you know, some people do. Has anybody ever heard of that? I guess it's like buying a dress.
I used to
and
work
returning it or
I was a
something.
designer at Expo Design Center.
Yeah.
We used to have people come in and just load up carts of that our beautiful stuff and then bring it back and return it. And that's
Right.
exactly what they were doing.
Uh-huh.
We were so mad because we had to go put all that stuff back up.
Oh my
So,
God.
but I've done it too, so. Not carts full.
So, at Keller Williams here, you have the ability to run your business. You have discretion on how you market your properties. There's tools we have, that you don't have to invest additional dollars. There's some things, that you do, and it does make sense to do that. And I'm just sharing with you some of the tools that we use. We use a product called Agent Marketing, and there's a couple different pricing models. You can do it on a per listing basis, but the primary thing that we use this for is see if I can pull one up here. Actually, I can just log on. Is to do websites for the listing. And you can pay $20, and for a year you can have a website for your particular listing that is very robust. And this is one example of this website. So the thing about these tools that I'm sharing with you to help market and promote your listing, you don't necessarily, you're using this, yes, to sell your listings, but you're using it, there's a dual purpose to having these tools. Does anybody have any idea what it might be?
Market yourself.
Exactly. So all these things that you're doing to promote your listings and all these service initiatives that you're utilizing and different elements of your business that make you a better real estate agent, yes, they help you with your seller clients, they help you with your buyer clients. But when you go to sit down with a prospective seller, you can share these tools, what you've done in the past or what you're going to do, and use that to solidify your position as an expert that's bringing value to the transaction. So that's one of the things we do with this agent marketing individual website. We tell prospective sellers, we've got this really cool website, and it has an HD virtual tour. So these are the pictures that Mary Powell took that we upload into there. And there's a variety of different templates that you choose, and you input a lot of the information that you would also put into the MLS. And then we go out and we purchase a URL for every listing. Usually the street number and then the street .info. And the reason why we do the .info is because it's only like $3 for the first year versus .com, it's like $15. And you really only need it for a year. If you got the listing for more than a year, you're probably doing something wrong anyway. So we just let them expire after that, or we tell the sellers, if you want this, you can have this and take it. You recognize that house. It's really cool. And like I said, you can invest in this agent marketing. You can buy different packages that include certain amount of listings. I think the one we have we pay like on a legacy plan like $40 or $50 a month. And we can have up to like 20 listings at any given time. That's kind of their market. But we have the templates, and we'll change them up from listing to listing. We had one out in Berkeley Lake a while back, and we went to a listing opportunity, and we went to talk to the seller, and we hadn't gotten a listing yet, and they were a Korean couple. And we're like, yeah, this is one of the websites that we're going to do for you.
Oh my gosh.
And
That's pretty cool.
we showed them how everything got translated into Korean. They thought that was the greatest thing in the world. I think that may be the reason why they hired us. Now I can't go back and show you some of the features until I change it back, because I don't know how to read Korean. but it has a virtual tour. In this case, it's an HD, and property mapping, payment information, find out more. There's just a variety of different things. Some of these links, this was a listing that is a few years old, and some of the, we did a drone one on this here. So we uploaded that to this website. So, we had a different photographer doing drone photography because this property, we wanted to accentuate how cool the lot was. So it's an option too. So Mary Powell, she does some drone work. We actually had somebody else do this one for us. And it all goes into that property website. We use that URL, which was the street address, .info, in all of our marketing. You know, in the print brochures, it's on the website. We do just listed, just sold postcards that we send out to the neighborhood. We include that. And everything is centered around that, driving people back to this website where the information is. Does that make sense? And the thing I wanted to share with you is this this Whole House website, or this property website, is this is just one provider of this service. Like I said, you can spend $20 and buy the rights to have one of these templated websites for a year's worth of time, or if you're expecting more, you can buy like bundles of it. But there's a resource out there called ListHub. Like I said, we're going to jump around here. That I've been using for years, and this is actually free. And they do whole property websites too. And Certainty Mortgage has made an investment with ListHub, so that you get, I mean, there's a free version that I'd used for years, but now that Certainty has invested in it to be used as a resource for agents in our office, you can do the whole property websites with this ListHub, and a bunch of other stuff too. So if you don't want to, we use that agent marketing only just because, I'm sorry, it's not ListHub. I got the wrong.
List report.
List report.
Right there at the bottom.
There it is. Yeah. So, okay. I hate when this happens. I didn't have it come in with enough time to. So Certainty Mortgage has made an investment where you can get marketing materials for your listing and infographics basically for free. And you don't want to necessarily watch that video. But we do this for virtually every listing. We'll print out on the color printers here at the office this information. And basically, once you have a listing in FMLS, or you can override it and enter the address in before it gets listed, it kicks out all kinds of marketing tools, including just listed postcards, property flyers, and this thing I really like is this infographics, which based on the address, you can print this out. These are 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper that are real graphically oriented, but it has information on the neighborhood. There's an area report. I don't know why this is doing this where it's not like, and then I scroll.
I think it's because you're zoomed in.
Anyway, this list reports is not going to cost you any money. In addition to all these graphics, they have whole property websites. And if you talk to the folks at Certainty Mortgage in the office here, they can get you set up with the credentials so you have access to all this. So I didn't bring it today, but I usually have a binder. I'm sorry I didn't bring it, but it has a lot of the printed materials that we use. And we do professionally printed brochures. But typically, by the time the pictures are done being taken, everybody's ready to list the property, so we want to go. And as I said earlier, we want everything ready when we list that house. We want the pictures done so we can put them all into MLS. When it goes into MLS, we want the sign in the yard. We want to have a caddy out there with brochures in it, so the first visitors have something to look at. A lot of agents, they just kind of wander into their listings over the first week or two and put the sign out, and then come back and put some brochures on, and maybe the next day get the super lockbox. No, we want it all set up. We want docs in FMLS if there's like legal descriptions. When it gets listed, we've got all that work done and it's behind us. And if we do get an early offer, we're prepared for it. So one of the things we'll do is, because we do these professional brochures and we use that website reference and like a little QR code to the website that I just showed you, that usually takes a couple days to come in. And we'll do a new listing flyer that comes from this list reports, and you don't even have to do anything. If it's already in FMLS, it takes the pictures and the information right from. I'll try downloading and see what that No, that's not it. Okay, so whether you use this as the flyer for the entire time you have a listing, or it's just a temporary one that you need to do real quickly, because I have, in this case, it was already listed in MLS. All I do is I log on to that list reports. It talks to the MLS. It pulls the information from the description, pulls the bedrooms and bathrooms, price, square footage, and you take and you print that out here so you can have flyers for your listing, just listed flyers almost immediately. And then, and also on the back it has this infographics, and it's just nice real graphical stuff that you can put in like a book. We do a book, like a 3-ring binder that has information on the house, a seller's disclosure, and other exhibits, legal description, maybe pictures of the house when everything's in bloom. But we print these pages out too, and there's a variety of different options. There's ones that's like multi-page, but it has stuff about the schools and the area and what's close by, neighborhood eats. So all this stuff is free. You show this to your prospective sellers too, like, I'm going to do all this. This may be part of your listing presentation. You can do this ahead of time by putting that information in. And you're impressing your seller because you have these resources already done. So there's a whole bunch of different tools within this list reports that I encourage you to check out that you can utilize both to get business and also to help with your buyers and your sellers.
And you said this one is free?
Yes, what you need to do is you need to go to Randy or Matt Lip in Certainty Mortgage and say, I want to get signed up for the list reports. and they'll set you up so that you have more capacity. And like I said, the functionality has all kinds of stuff. You can post this stuff like a coming soon flyer to Facebook right from your logged on website here. And there's a bunch of functionality. It's
Is
just,
that the only one it's linked to, or you can link it to whichever ones you want, like LinkedIn?
I
or-
think right now it's just
Just
Facebook. Once you share, once you have that,
Template, you can just put it in.
yeah, you can, I don't know, I think they want you to upload JPEGs and image files to Facebook, but, if you upload to what, it populates to Facebook. I'm not even a social media junkie, you guys know this, right? Instagram. Yeah, if you put it in Instagram, you can check a box, because Instagram owns Facebook, and it'll push it into Facebook. You can pick in Facebook whether you want it on your personal page or your business page. And business pages are free, they're linked. Everybody should create a Facebook business page. It's like a no-brainer to have that. It's free, and this is where you can start posting stuff like this about your listings. You don't want to go too heavy on your personal Facebook, and there's all kinds of different schools of thought. And I'm like anti-social media. I'm not a big social media guy. I was listening to some guy on the radio how he gave up social media for Lent and how big of a sacrifice it was. It's like, it's really no problem for me because I don't like going there. I don't really like it. I feel like I have to, but I don't like it. But it's just a way of touching lots of people and inexpensively. And if you do want to spend money, you can spend little bits of money and promote yourself to different categories of people. It's just the stuff you can do. What I've learned is really amazing. It's a whole nother class. So that is list reports. List reports, agent marketing, we're talking about, among other things, property websites. And that's all part of the promotion of your listing. And also you're using it to get new listings when you talk to prospective sellers. Michael Lewis Marketing, who's familiar with that? You guys heard of him, Michael Lewis? You haven't gone through that in the classes yet? So, we're part of Keller Williams Atlanta Perimeter. We're part of the Rawls Group. And the Rawls Group consists of 5 other Keller Williams offices: Buckhead, Peachtree Road, East Cobb, and whatever, the other one.
Atlanta North.
Yeah. So we pay as an office a premium to Michael Lewis, who's out of California, to create these marketing tools. And this gets addressed in one of the other classes. I think, or Stacy does a special class. But, we're not graphic designers. I've tried to I used to do flyers in Microsoft Word and Publisher, and they always just look a little rough around the edges, So this Michael Lewis Marketing, just like that list reports in a certain way, has a whole menu of different marketing services. How we use it, you can get your business cards done there. You can have continuity from your business cards to your flyers, to door hanging, door knocking flyers that you hang on doorknobs when you do it. That's what those things are. They've got all kinds of products that you can utilize that are templated, and you just put your information in. And they also will print it for you. And we do these flyers for, if it's, depending on the price point and how many good pictures we can get, we'll either do like an 8.5 by 11 front and back, or 11 by 17 like holdover. And it's one of their templates. So we just go to their website. Kathy, my wife, does it. She has a particular template that we kind of have used. It's kind of branded towards us. You can upload your picture, and you can pull the photographs from Mary Powell that took you, enter in your bullet points and information, put in a website from the agent marketing, and you can create a PDF and have it printed locally, or you can have them do it. And we usually print about 50 to 100, and it only costs like $50, 50 to 60 bucks is what we seem to be spending. And you get these nice, glossy, heavy bond brochures that are really professionally done, and they were put together by graphic designers, not Bill Haas, who can't really work his way too good around publishing. I can do probably better than the average bear, but not anything like what they can do. And that is how we deliver premium printed products. You can do just listed postcards in addition, and they'll print those out and send them to you, and then you can send them, you can bulk mail them and send them out, bring them to the post office. They do have a model, I think, where they'll send them out for you. You can pick neighborhoods. And it's just a really good resource. Like I said, the office pays for that for you to have access to it. Diane Black can give you more details if you need information. As I said, we just primarily use it for the brochures, but they have websites. They've got a variety of different resources and tools that are really good. So we're paying for it for you, so you should definitely check it out and use it. All right, Michael Lewis Marketing. And again, you can show this to prospective sellers in addition to helping in selling your listings. I'm just going to go down the list here. Matrix Portal for Sellers. Matrix is the FMLS interface that gives us access to the listings, right? And we talked about this before, about setting up yourself, like on the homes that you preview. But I'm just going to revisit it for a second. And I'm not going to show you how to do it, because you can go to an FMLS class and learn it. It really isn't complicated. But some of the nuts and bolts. You do a property search. I like to do it for when I have a listing. I like to do it for that neighborhood where the listing is in. But you could do it for a home, for your just, if you just sold a house and the people move in, you could set it up for them after they move in, so they're informed about the home sales in the neighborhood. The way it works is you do that search, and you want to make it broad enough where it captures new listings as they come in that are pertinent. And you set it up, and you can control the frequency on how often it sends out those results to the recipient, which would be your buyer, seller, or just homeowner in your sphere of influence. You can have it do it immediately, like if it's somebody who needs that information, if you're waiting for a property to come up, it'll send it to them as soon as that agent enters it into FMLS. It'll send them an email and you, if you check the box, that this house just came on the market, that meets all the criteria that they put in their filter in FMLS. You can also do it like in concierge mode, where it lets you know first, and then you decide whether or not you want to pass it along to their client. But think about it, say you got a home seller, and husband and wife gets in the car, bringing the kids to school and going to work, rolls out like 4 houses down, all of a sudden there's a real estate yard in the sign. Their house is for sale too, and it's like, I didn't even know those people were selling. I know those folks, they're good friends with them. That's like a shock. Well, she gets to work, opens up her email, and all of a sudden, boom, she's got an email from Selena saying, new property meets the criteria in the heading, and they click on it, and it's that house. She thinks that you just sold it to her, but it's an automated system that's sending that out. So it puts you top of mind, emphasizes that you're on top of the market. You'll get notification of that listing too, so you'll see it, so you're aware of it. You just got to do this. You got to learn how to use this portal. It's really popular. Now, has anybody talked to you about all the new technology that's coming down the pipe for us at Keller Williams? Have you heard? It's not, the deliverable is not there yet, but to be relevant in this industry where there's so much disruption and change, Gary Keller, our founder, out of Austin, Texas, is just a brilliant visionary. The guy he's reinvented this company multiple times. And he recognizes now that there's major disruption in this business, and to survive and thrive, the model needs to change. And he has personally, as you know, the majority owner of the Keller Williams International, the master franchisor, has invested, I've heard, hundreds of millions of dollars, and so has the company, in hiring tech people and getting agents involved in these different labs to create products and services that you can use in your business. And I've been privy to some of the stuff that's coming down the pike, and it is it's game changing. It's to the point where I've been doing this since 1993 full time, and I'm probably more excited about what they have in development than I have been in my whole career, because it's so changing, and it revolves around that Kelly app that you can download on your phone, and a new branded consumer app. And Keller Williams is partnering with Nextdoor, because they've defined all these little sub-neighborhoods all around the country. Whereas once all these pieces of this puzzle come together, you're going to be able to communicate with your sphere of influence in their neighborhoods, not as a generalist talking about the Atlanta market and what's going on, but more similar to this matrix, but not just listings, other stuff that's occurring in that footprint. So it's going to be like an information source. It's automated intelligence combined with big data being delivered to us to utilize to be able to better serve our clientele. And just all I've got to say is stay tuned, because we're light years ahead of our competition in the stuff that's about to get rolled out in the next 6 to 18 months. It's really amazing. It's super amazing. If anybody needs a bathroom break, is what I typically do, is I just continue to roll here, and if you need to jump out, unless everybody says, I just want to stop for 10 minutes, but I can do either way. What do you guys want to do?
10 minutes is cool.
Yeah, I'd
10
like to
minutes?
stop for a minute.
When do you guys want to stop? It's 11:30. Right now? Take a break? All right.
Doesn't matter.
What's that?
I say it doesn't matter.
All right, let's take 10 minutes. I'll be here for questions if anybody has questions. Otherwise, you can go that way through the bathroom, you can come back in this way. Everybody knows where all the coffee and water and whatnot is. Patsy, you need anything?
Just go right to the restroom. Oh, that's good. I'm gonna have all somebody hold this. I'll get it done.
You got all that.
Yeah, no, that's good. I got that.
Yeah. But you're going to have, you'll at least be able to get to the resources. You may not be able to on some of them.
Yeah, maybe the Google Docs I can get
All
on.
right, that's cool.
Google Docs, this will open up this.
Oh, okay.
And once you get
Okay,
here,
'cause if I go to
like if you click on,
I can't do the portal or any of that probably.
yeah, but all these other ones, like all these,
Yeah.
these are just links to websites. Mary Powell's, that one.
Okay, so that's good.
This you can get to the page, but you can't log on to it.
Okay, I got you, but it's good, I mean, like, it's amazing how technology and the digital world runs things, because, I mean, then you need the personal touch out in the field, you know?
Right.
So, interesting, I just was curious, that open door, I saw the open door, like, all around Dunwoody, so I experimented and set up the app, went and looked at a house, and they basically, you give them info, and then they open up the house for you.
Right.
For like an hour, and you go look at it, there's no
Did
agent.
you do the one by the high school or which one?
I did the one on North Peachtree that's been on the
Okay.
market for almost a year now.
Right.
And, but anyways, interesting, and then I was just reading up on what they do, and they make a lot of money they're really trying to make money on refurbishing your house too. Is that what you know about them?
There's a variety of different companies doing.
And how does Keller Williams go on the offense,
Mhm.
with that kind of, because there's another company that does that too. I
Well, there's
understand.
Open Door, there's Knock.
Yeah.
Trilly is doing it now, where they're buying homes.
Yeah.
Mark Spain has got his guaranteed offer.
Oh, really?
And I'll address that, because that's a
Okay,
good
okay,
point.
you're gonna
I'll
bring
talk
it
to the
up,
class
okay.
about that, because that is something that probably needs to be addressed. But
Mhm.
the reality is, just in a nutshell, it's really nothing new. They're investors. They're looking to buy properties. And investors typically make their money on the acquisition, not on the sale. And they're intending to sell it in the future for a profit, depending on what they put into it. So acquiring it for the lowest possible price is what every investor does. They do it not only as a function of price, is where they capture that lowest cost. They do it price, they do repairs, like they'll charge back a seller, you know, we have to account for $18,000 in repairs. That knocks down that bottom line. They also charge commissions too.
Okay.
So those elements allow them to drive that acquisition cost down. And they all have kind of different models, like Knock allows you to go out and buy a house without selling yours.
Okay.
Some of them come
Okay.
outright and buy it. So there's kind of different twists and turns. And that worked exceptionally well on an appreciating market. And in some cases, we're still there, but we're seeing some stabilization in other places and even declines, like on luxury in some areas.
Yeah.
That doesn't work as good when the prices are going down when you're acquiring these.
Right.
I mean, the one across from the high school
That was
now
Deacon
is.
Bill, Deacon Ray.
Oh,
Deacon
that-
Ray, Deacon Egan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was his house? Okay. So he probably ended up okay on that,
Yeah. So they just wrote him a check and says, Lee will handle the rest?
more or less. And sometimes they make it up on the commission on a purchase when somebody buys too, so they're making money there too. But it's not, you know, when they're doing it on your house, they're not representing Ray.
Yeah.
They weren't representing his
Oh, yeah.
best interest.
Yeah.
I mean, so that house now is listed for below what they paid him for it. And there are probably commissions
You were
and
learning the
repair
CMA.
costs
Is
built
that
in.
about-
And are they kind of like on a volume basis, and so their profits can be
They've got
thin?
hedge fund money or
Okay.
Wall Street money. They're
So they're just,
Yes,
they're
but,
making it on the,
I checked it last
more
night and
than
I saw they
each.
didn't
Well, I think-
upload it. And I checked
I don't
it
know.
again,
I mean, if it's a
and
national
then I
company,
find out
is
I'll
that-
send you an
they put
article.
out- they put
One of our
down
Keller
the wrong
Williams
date
agents,
on the
and this has
title.
been a while, so
It's there. I'll
this is
go
an
watch it
ever-changing
Today.
situation. If you gotta go to the restroom.
Well, I was just gonna.
How was your day yesterday?
I mean,
Oh, it was, okay, had a little
I'll
rest.
send you the article,
but
because it's
eating
really
better.
quite interesting, but he had a house, I want to say it was in Decatur.
Oh, that's right. You went
And
to
he engaged Knock, Open Door,
It
and
was,
there was one other
I
one.
think I got allergy from several different
Anyway.
things yesterday.
I think it
Just
ranged in
feeling
discount
really
between like
terrible.
20 and 60% off. You know,
So
what
how-
he would have,
Yes.
That time of year.
what he could have sold it for.
How long have you been in this
So
business?
the only value is
Oh, just
you get the cash and nobody walks through your house, but
Okay.
for a little bit of pain, you can
But I've had
net a
my
lot. I mean, you're
license,
paying a
so-
huge premium for
I
convenience.
just.
Well,
That's
it's
what it boils down
interesting
to.
because Mr.
You didn't
Yacht,
use it?
you know, like my friend.
Yeah.
You know, I'm telling him about Deacon Ray's house, you know, because people are not.
So
gonna
do you
understand
find any
all the time.
customers by now?
And he'll tell me, and I'll say,
I
okay,
haven't.
I want you
Have you?
to look out for that. Well, I mean, just common sense kind of thing. I'm not a real estate agent.
Yeah.
But
Did you
then
talk-
I was
talk
warning him
with your
about Open
friends
Door.
about the new
You know, I
business
said,
you're doing?
and he said, this sounds pretty good to me. He said, I'm 82 years old. I don't want to deal with anything. I want somebody to write me a check and then I leave.
Yeah, but you want to pay the premium for that though.
And I said, but you're giving a bunch of strangers your money, your good money, instead of your kids.
Right.
You know,
right, yeah.
but anyway, he liked the idea of the simplicity of it. So they're targeting these older people
Right.
where the white will check. Go.
But a good real estate agent can come in and minimize a lot of those pains. A lot of it's pricing it right. So yeah, you might have to endure 5 days of it being on the market, and then you got to go through inspections.
Right.
But there's ways to deal with that and still net a ton more money.
Well, I just wonder if the industry on the whole is going to be affected in terms of looking for ways to streamline all that stuff to compete with an Open Door. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, you're right, and I talked about the Keller Williams technology. So it's what they've done. So we've got over 100,000 agents, and they hired. Gary Keller said, you know what? You know, it started out as a real estate company, and then in the 90s he said, we're no longer a real estate company. We're a training and consulting company, and it kind of morphed in Keller Williams University. And not only training the agents, but training the business owners that own these franchises. So it became a training and consulting company. And just like we've had these major revolutions in society, from the industrial age to the information age, you know, we're adapting here now too. So he said, you know what, we're going to adapt to, and I'm not talking about this office, I'm talking about Keller Williams International, to a tech company, a tech-enabled company.
Okay.
And he said, number one, to hire good Silicon Valley and high-level talent, they don't want to come work for real estate companies. They want to work for tech companies. So I know it isn't as easy as just saying, we're a tech company, but the actions that he's taking are doing
I
that.
see where they're
But yeah,
going.
that's-
So
And it has your
hired these
friend,
couple, one guy
She gotta
who's
send it
just
to me because she
a
said she'll
brilliant
get it.
dude.
Yeah, you get
And
$10 off.
they've
You
created
get
these
$10
things
off.
called labs, Keller Williams Labs.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one in Atlantic Station.
And they've got all these
You
different
know.
projects.
You know that.
How are you, Mr.
that,
You know where Atlantic Station is,
that
right?
you can
You know,
participate in
big
agents, and the
open
whole idea
That
is
part right behind the garage.
utilize it, make
That
it,
big open
help us
concrete building.
break it,
That's where it's at.
improve it, get it ready for prime time
Yeah, I
to
haven't
release
been
to
to
all
that
the
site.
agents. The
I
consumer
really
app
haven't been to
at
many
Kelly. So we got like
festivals in a while.
a
Like I used to.
Amazon
I went to Taste of Marietta.
Alexa app for real estate.
I always knew that I
That's
was
for the
festival. I didn't go
agents,
this
not for
year
the
'cause I did the wine
consumer. I
festival.
gotcha.
That's all I'm saying.
The consumer app we've always had, but they're totally redoing it, and it's all based on the input of agents
Now that I'm
using it.
full-time-
So if you make it, the beauty is if you streamline the
First
agent's
default on
access to
business, that's why we
information
focus.
in their process, it's gonna
You just
filter
scroll
down
through.
to the consumer.
So like right now, they got.
And
the open house. They got
it's
this
multifaceted in the way it benefits not only the agent but the consumer. But it's the combination
And I was
between
thinking I was
automated
going to enjoy it
intelligence
and
and
at that wine
big
festival, that's
data.
even right on
We've been
TV.
capturing that big data on like a competitors from a transactional level.
You got to do
But to the point where,
They probably did
you know,
that
in the near future,
That's how they-
you as an agent, you may have two offers that get uploaded into our
But you
system
wait, you gotta
with
wait.
Keller Williams, and it auto-analyzes it and says, okay, with the terms in offer number 2, even though it's $5,000 less, there's a greater chance that it's actually, there's a 76 chance based on historical data that this one is actually going to close and close on time versus offer number 1.
You can't search.
And it's
You just scroll through.
taking all kinds of information and
So it gives you these.
and that's just one little microcosm.
Educated, a more fact-based or database decision-making process.
Yeah, and it's even, and that's just one little microcosm and tangent of what's
So
going
it's
on.
not, it's just like open door, it's more all the data on the data.
Which is a big part of it, but that's not all of it.
They don't have concepts on
And one of the things that Keller Williams is actually laying the groundwork for, and that concept we're talking about is called iBuyer in the industry, internet buyer. And we are, I think Gary Keller is working with investors to lay the groundwork, where we as agents
Whoever's
will have
But
access
how do you get your
to
tickets though with the concert, like, so you know where you're
portfolio
It
money
gives you.
buyers, where we'll come in and offer that as an option. So that's coming down the pipe, at least I've heard that's what it's on.
Well, that's
There's a ton of disruption going
You can
on.
tell that change is happening. You know,
Oh,
like
okay.
you can just
But I think once you
sense
reserve it, it probably
something
auto-generates it.
That's gonna change.
Friends and groups and stuff like that. But if you do
because it's
groups,
cumbersome, you
what we
know,
figured
it's
out
not,
is if you
it's
do like
not
US basketball
tech
game,
savvy.
everybody has
Right.
tickets.
I need to get, see if I can get
But then when we
you
do
set
groups,
up as one of our assistants, so you can have access to this information. It's all behind Keller Williams, password
How do you
protected.
the paper all
But
these?
you'd be amazed if you watch
I don't know.
this here Keller.
You know,
It's
it's
absolutely
absolutely. They probably do.
I read articles about him and I, you know,
Companies when they sell tickets.
The very first time I went to Austin,
They sell a certain amount of tickets.
what a
so
great
that
place to be
agent-
headquartered.
it is cool. It's kind of,
They probably buy like
It
the
fits the
sanctuary city
brand.
part is kind of,
maybe like
but
35% off or something like that.
there's like, 3,000 people
They
there.
change their favor right
His
now.
presentation,
People are
prices,
trying to get
dollars,
Last year,
black t-shirt, and blue jeans, and I thought he was like one of the roadie guys setting it up. And Gary
I just heard
Keller,
about it at the wine festival. My friend told me.
He's just
Well,
brilliant.
tell me my
That's
friend, she's
amazing.
Well, that's,
I saw all my neighbor
it
coworkers
sounds
doing
like
that.
he's
I'm like,
branded, he's like created a
I was in
brand.
on
Right,
coworkers.
yeah.
And then what I do is
All
like,
right.
if I get a ticket, I don't want to.
All right, do we have any questions right now? We got basically an hour and 10 minutes left.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Any questions on what we've covered?
Just going back to my initial question, what is your recommendation for us, you know, brand new agents, limited resources,
Yep.
want to be effective, but
All right, let's write this down. We're talking about if you have a listing,
right.
you've got a engaged seller that wants you to sell their property. What do I need to do? Is that it, really?
What are the basics? Like, what's going to get you
Bare minimum
80% of the
cost
way?
effective.
Yes. Because we love what you're doing, but it's like, okay, that's my dream goal, you know.
Well, a lot of this stuff is free, so,
Okay.
and you can utilize it, but you only have so many hours in the day,
Right,
so you gotta
and
pick and choose.
Time management.
The
like you
most
lost this.
important thing you can do with your listing to help your seller achieve his goal or her is to do what? What's the single most important?
Price it right.
Pricing. If you don't get that right, then your chances of success go down dramatically. And, you know, sometimes you're gonna
Drive
get,
that home to them.
sometimes you're gonna get situations where a home is not, the seller won't price it where you believe it needs to be, and that's fine. And you may not take it. I mean, we had one last year that we didn't take because, I mean, they're like back and forth, and finally, like, really want to use you, and I'm like, you know, we talked about the price, and they were like aghast when I told them what it should sell for. And I'm like, I'm just going off data here and experience, but if you don't get this right, you know, you're going to help other homes sell. Well, it was listed, and we watched it, and it's failed to sell, and they had like 3 showings in 3 months.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just like, why put yourself through that kind of agony? Now, you may find a situation where, hey man, this house is cherry, it's gonna sell, the people have to move, they're getting transferred, they're just unreasonable, they're not willing to price it right, but you're gonna make a business decision and engage, and you're gonna try to set them up where they're willing to make an adjustment as soon as possible if you don't get the desired results, which is an offer, you know, showings and offers. If you're not getting either one of those, you know, the showings first, that's a good indication that it's overpriced. And even if you do overprice it, if you modify it and adjust it in a short period of time, and we're talking, the consumer usually has a different vision on what this is. We're talking like 5 to 15 days. You know, a seller thinks, well, at least I'm going to give it a month or so, and it's like, no.
No, that's too long.
Yeah. So pricing is the most important thing. So get it priced right. And that's what these tools are for, this CRS tax. This is part of GAMLS. You've got access to tax records and information and comps through FMLS. I really like this GAMLS interface, and that'll help you. It has a variety of different tools in there to help you price. This is Remind. This is something that I just stumbled on recently. It's a tool through our MLS too. And Patsy, we're talking about pricing here. The question was, how do we, what do we need to do? We're about to get a listing. What are the nuts and bolts? You know, we can talk about all this other fluffy stuff. But this Remind is, if you go to fmls.com, you can access this tool at no cost. It's just another add-on. And go to it real quick. It's a tool to help you evaluate and price property. It's just another tool that pulls data from a variety of different sources. A lot of these companies out there are aggregators. They get information from tax digests, they get information from a variety of different databases. Products. So I'm at fmls.com. I click this Remind, and it comes up with this interface, and you can search individual properties. I found this to be one of the more comprehensive resources. And I'm going to put in here 5515 Woodsong Trail. This is the house, my previous house that I lived at. And you can see here, it has a variety of information. It has comps on the right. And if I go down to, they've changed this a little bit since the last time. And one of the cool things about this Remind, they promote it as a prospecting tool, because you can use the free version, and they're trying to sell you the paid version on a subscription basis. But it's supposed to have analytics and predictability on various data points on a particular property or seller that would indicate whether or not they are a high probability that they're going to be selling their home in the near future. And they seem to have that figured out based on age, education, how long they've lived there, a variety of different things. So there's different ways to use this. I like, see, they're trying to upgrade me right here. I like to use it just for the information that it gives you. And that's not gonna work. That's the one thing on all this technology, it is constantly in a state of change on the interfaces and everything else. If you go to this website here, though, it has a, I had a buddy who had a house behind him, and he's like, look, their dog is barking all night long, it's driving me crazy. I wish I knew how to approach him. It was in a different neighborhood that backed up to him off of Mount Vernon Way. And I did a Remind report, and from that you can even do find people's personal emails and phone numbers and whatnot. He thought I was like Columbo. I sent him this report. I spent $5 and did it. But if you go to this Remind and you play with this, obviously it's not working for me now. It has a ton of information about the property, what they paid for it, the mortgages they have on it. It has information about from a number of different resources that will give algorithm pricing recommendations, like a range, like on what it's worth. A human isn't calculating this, computers are. And some of it's off base, that usually and they'll come up with a specific number, but they'll also give you a range. And those ranges, which you'll find also in just FMLS's tax record information, are typically consistently correct. If you need a starting point, you can go in and look at the tax record. So that's the first thing, getting the price right. If you don't get that right, in many cases, you're setting yourself up for failure for the future. So pricing right, and if you do on the market and you're not getting showings, or if you're getting showings and you're not getting offers, typically that is an indicator that it's not positioned properly. You can still recover by modifying that price in a timely fashion. The other things you want to do is you want to put it in both MLS and FMLS. Take time to do it thoroughly. Enter the fields correctly. I can't tell you how often I go into FMLS and I see a listing is not entered correctly. Don't use, you see sometimes it has a field for directions. What do you see in there oftentimes?
Use GPS.
Yeah.
Use GPS. I've lived in Dunwoody for 30 years. There's still listings that come up in Dunwoody. Where is that street again? And I know I can click on the map and it would come up, although sometimes the agents don't even get that right. Because it auto maps it, and sometimes you want to check where it's mapped. Sometimes it's like in Holly Springs, and it's like, no, you got to reposition it. But don't use GPS. If you might as well put nothing there. Yeah, obviously I know I can use GPS, duh. But when I'm scanning through a listing as an agent, sometimes I'm just curious. Oh, it's off Mount Vernon and Vermac. Okay, well now I kind of have an idea where it's at. Don't be lazy. Put in the directions. So use good pictures. The first 4 pictures, now maybe 6, get propagated to Realtor.com. It's a pretty common search engine. Sometimes agents will use, you may want to choose the pictures you use in the first few of them, even if they don't go in sequence. Like we try whenever possible, front, foyer, kind of where you walk through the main level, upstairs, basement, exterior. And that's generally a good rule of thumb, but sometimes you want, if you've got some really good pictures, you want to put them in the first few so that they get those eyeballs in some of the search engines that have the agreements with our MLS publish those pictures in their main page of that particular listing. Put it in both MLS, FMLS, and GAMLS, right? Do open houses, because it's going to give you an opportunity to lead generate and find other prospective home, or to find home buyers. There's a whole class on open houses. But walk around the neighborhood with flyers and invite the neighbors to the open house. This doesn't cost you any money. That does a couple things. It demonstrates to these neighbors that you're not just putting a sign in the yard, you're trying to actually sell their neighbor's house because you're physically going out and inviting them to the open house. And that can be an opportunity where you could potentially pick up additional listings. You might find out, yeah, this person, maybe not today, but they're planning on selling sometime in early 2020. It's a perfect time to start building that drip campaign and start communicating with them and build that pool of clients that are coming up, not just now, but in the future, to have a solid, consistent book of business. So you want to do that. For a reasonable amount of money, you can do just listed postcards, and sellers love that. And you pick 50 or 100 of the closest neighbors and send out just listed, or you could hand deliver them. Getting the right pictures and putting the pictures in FMLS, we talked about that. Those are all important listing components. I would say the other half of that, and it's part of this lesson, is communicating, and we'll talk about it now too, is communicating with your sellers. And we've gotten into a habit here recently where we like to call our sellers every Monday and just have a recap of what's going on. Oftentimes there'll be showings over the weekend, so Monday or Tuesday is a good day. Had one particular client that, I forget what it was, but I missed the call, and her husband's like, did you get your Monday call from Bill? And I called her on Tuesday, she's like, yeah, Christian said you missed the call yesterday. I'm like, I'm sorry, I tried to, but there was some family thing that was going on. So the worst thing you can do is get in a situation where things aren't happening the way you want, and you're starting to feel like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? The house isn't selling, nobody's showing it, and you're not communicating with your seller. So you put off that first Monday call and you don't call them. Now it's 2 weeks and you're like, you're out of communication. That's the absolute worst thing you can do. Stay in conversation with your sellers. And as what we like to do is every week before we make that call is reach out to do a variety of things so you can present some type of relevant data that both helps you as the agent in listing the property, but also helps the seller become a better informed client or listing person. So oftentimes I'll call like 5 of the competing listings prior to making that Monday call, and just have a conversation, a short conversation with the agent if I can get them, saying, how's it going? Did you get any showings? Oh, I got a Harry Norman showing. Did that person show yours? No. Well, I wonder why, or they'll ask you that question. But you can you get a pulse, a feel for what's going on in the marketplace by talking to these other listing agents. And I always say, I'm going to come try and preview your listing, and please come come by and check mine out so that, you know, we can help each other out. You know, we can work cooperatively. Because they may have marketing efforts that are touching people that draw prospective buyers, but that listing doesn't meet those buyers' needs. To make sure they're informed of what your home has to offer can be a logical way for them to be able to participate in a transaction, earn commissions, and sell your listing. So that's one thing I'll do, is I'll call other agents that have, the houses are under contract. Sometimes I'll call homes, or that are still active for sale. Sometimes I'll call homes that are under contract that are competing and just pick their brain. But whenever you do this and follow this kind of exercise, and you can get creative and do a variety of different things to gain market knowledge and get a pulse of what's going on. You always pick up little ditties of information that are valuable to you and potentially valuable to your seller client. So when you make that call, you have something to present and discuss with them other than just, you know, recount. And then ask them questions. So client communications is just really important.
Sorry, I have too many questions.
That's all right.
Are there some agents that just list and some agents that don't really care about listing and they just like to sell things?
Yeah, so there's a variety of different models out there per se. There's a lot of agents that do both and are general. But there are teams where you have like a rainmaker and they have buyers agents and listing specialists, and those people only do those particular tasks. You have teams that have only buyer agents on them and they just work for that rainmaker as a buyer's agent. Some agents will focus just on buyers and buyer representation. That's how they market themselves, as being a buyer's agent, and they don't even work with sellers. And then on top of that, there's also just like, even, you know, and it's recommended to pick a niche, even if you don't limit yourself to that, but to pick a niche that's always a good idea and promote yourself and learn as much about that as possible. There's certifications out there right now through the National Association of Realtors if you wanted to be a specialist for downsizers and seniors, and all kinds of training revolving around how to better do that as a niche in your market. I've seen people that were marketed themselves as master on the main specialist, whether it's working with a buyer or the seller. But yeah, and then I would say most people, especially when you get started though, you're willing to burn the candle from both ends and do either. And that's what we've always done. We've worked with both buyers and sellers. And a lot of times your seller is a buyer, right? Because they're moving and buying locally.
So how do you pick a particular price point? Because right now, with my sphere, it's not where I can make some money. So I know in this office, typically people list homes and work with buyers that are at the 400 or 300 range or better.
Right.
And I'm stuck with a lot of 150s and 100s. So how can I change that?
Well, I think it's, I mean, I never necessarily targeted a specific price point. We've been fortunate that we've had a lot of luxury clients, both buyers and sellers, you know, up into that 7-figure number, which, you know, that's nice revenue. Those are really nice commissions. But those tend to be more complicated and take longer and fewer far between, and especially if you're the listing agent for like that $2 million listing that the seller wouldn't get it to the price we wanted. We had it at 2.5. We brought him an offer for $2 million. He rejected it, and now it's under contract 2 years later for 1.8. But I would say don't focus on a price point. Focus on people and opportunities, networking with people that you think are going to be in the area and the price point you want to work towards. But there's nothing wrong. I mean, I'll take and I I try to stay in this geographic area so that the area you work in oftentimes will dictate the bookends on where the prices are. I mean, you can't really buy a house in Dunwoody under $300K right now. So it's like the floor around here, you can get in even some of the condos are even a lot more. But the point is, I focus more on the area, and that kind of drives the price point, and you can do a lot of things to promote yourself and get involved with the community and network to find buyers that are associated with those price points. But for me, if somebody came to me, like we had I think it was a $125,000 condo, I don't turn that down. I'll do that all day long, because the lower median price, average price typically means the transaction is just going to happen a lot quicker, all other things being equal. So don't be afraid of those, but maybe do some things to try to.
Yeah, I'm not afraid, but I have a goal where I'm trying to make some real money.
Yeah.
And that means I have to work harder, because if I keep doing 100, I'm going to have to close about 10 houses just to get my goal, versus I can do the same thing by just closing 5.
I think you can do, offer to do open houses for some of the more established agents in higher price points. And you just kind of got to plug in. What part of town do you live in?
I live in Southwest Atlanta, so it's real diverse. I
Yeah.
mean, you got high, low, all that.
It's just a matter of getting out there and kind of changing the scenery on who you're hanging out with and who you're targeting, and it'll all come together. But I wouldn't focus on the price as much as like the people and the opportunities and learning the neighborhoods that you'd like to work in that are a price point that is higher maybe than where you're at now. I don't know if that answers your question.
Some people.
I have a question. In calling the few contacts that I have called so far, that they're ones that actually are possibilities. Some of the things that have come to me are areas that are way too far for me to want to go to, just because I'd be spending way too much time in Atlanta traffic driving back and forth, and it would not be good use of my time, and it would be very expensive. And I would rather refer something like that to someone that's maybe in that area of town. Does Keller Williams have some kind of, is there a way to find out who works what areas so we could refer it, and then hopefully they would refer things back in our areas?
Yes. The answer to that is yes, and there's a variety of different ways. And if you guys haven't figured this out yet, the sweetest form of residential real estate commission is the referral. And everybody knows how that works, right? Patsy, you familiar with that? So as a licensee, you can take somebody, and it may be somebody that's your seller here that's moving to Tampa, and they don't know anybody in Tampa, and you can find them a great agent that operates just like you. It's going to be conscientious, and have them help that seller of yours who's a buyer down there. And you can contact, this is the way I do it. If I don't know somebody in that market already, oftentimes I'll call the team leader, which was the equivalent of Brad. Brad was the guy that came in with the tickets. He's like our broker. And sometimes it's the assistant team leader. And I try to get a good match. I've got a couple that is just retired. They are in their 60s. Their kids are all out of the house. They're moving to Tampa because they want to be, they've always had a dream of having a house with a boat slip. And Mr. Team Leader, Mrs. Team Leader, who would be a good agent for somebody in this age category that is looking for this waterfront type of thing? Oh, Jim Carr, he's perfect for that. He actually lives on the water. He's about their age. He's one of our top producers. Perfect. Is there anybody else you can recommend? Yeah, such and such. Okay. Then I'll call those people, and I'd interview them and explain that I have a buyer that's coming their way. Are you interested in doing a referral? And typically the answer is always yes. And you can negotiate that agent in Tampa share anywhere from 20 to 35% of their commission with you for referring them business. And with a few phone calls, you can make that connection. And it can be local, like you said. There's also a database which you should enter your information on in Keller Williams on our main KW website, which puts you into a pool, and you can put your resume and everything else on there. And you can reach out within that and contact agents in other places before that referral comes up to build this network. Because everybody's doing it, I find it less personal. I usually go hunting once I have the need. But there's ways to do some pre-work. And when you go to these Keller Williams events, like the conventions and even regional stuff, you may find, somebody who's in Peachtree City that you have a connection with, keep their card, put them in your database, market to them like you would to prospective buyers and sellers, so that if they have somebody come into Dunwoody, they're going to call on you, and you create those personal relationships. So that's that, and you need to gauge it too from a level of motivation. We really haven't talked about it, but it's probably come up in your previous training. You can get lucky with unmotivated buyers and sellers, but you can also get very unlucky and waste a lot of time. That should be your first filter in dealing with somebody, is what is their motivation? When somebody comes to me and says, I really don't have to sell, I'd just like to see if I could get this price, my antenna go up. And I'll tell you, I think the consumers out there are pretty astute this day and age. They may not see it directly, but they recognize an unmotivated seller. And there's nothing more of a turnoff unless you just have something that is a spectacular listing that everybody in the world wants, which, those come few and far between. You're not in the catbird seat as a seller. So you want, and the buyers too, so you want to focus your energies on motivated buyers and sellers, people that have to have a need. And you want to consult with them. You want to sit down and talk to them and not just ask them why it's important that they buy. When they give you that answer, you've got to ask them, why is that important? And drill down deeper. And sometimes you get down to the heart of things, like, I've heard this one story, this family had a disabled child and they had to get into this one particular school that met their needs. At first blush, it's just they just needed to sell because it was getting in a different school. But it was beyond that. It was a timing thing. If they didn't get it in at this certain time, it would have been a major handicap to their whole situation and the goal that they were trying to achieve. And oftentimes buyers and sellers get sidetracked in as to what is important to them in a transaction. And if you take the time to take that consultative approach on the front end, some people it's easy to understand. They just want to get the highest prices selling, or it's primarily time or money. But if you can find out the reasons why they need to do what they're doing, oftentimes you'll get to a point in a transaction when you're making an offer, or you have a listing and an offer comes in, and you just can't seem to get the buyer and seller together. And you have that conversation with that seller, like, look, you told me when we started this process of getting Jimmy into this school by September 1st was the most important thing to you in this whole transaction. And we've got $3,000 separating you from this buyer, and they're going to walk if you don't meet it. Now, we can go back to the drawing board and relist it, but you need to make the decision, is taking $3,000 less for this house worth it to you to achieve that particular goal? And oftentimes getting back to their big why and reminding them is so important, and it's a very distracting process, both when you're buying and selling, and a lot of emotions and emotions pulling people in different directions. You've got to stay grounded on those big whys and why it is they're moving and selling. So with your question, if you do find that you have a motivated buyer and they have to, they're getting relocated, they've got 2 trips down here, they're really going to make a decision after the second trip. It's not a matter of if they can find a good house, they just have to find the best house that suits their needs. That's a risk I'm willing to take. I'm willing to go and drive further, put more energy into it, because I know it's more of a sure thing, versus somebody that's like, I'm an investor, I want to buy investment properties. I just went to a seminar at the Hilton And I think I get this figured out, and I'd like to give it a try. I'm not going to spend like 3 weekends in a row driving them around when the motivation level, from my perspective, is not high. So refer them if they're unmotivated. Let that other agent deal with it. If they're motivated, work with them. On the listing side, it requires more work. But, you know, depending on who you're dealing with, like I had a listing, it was a guy that sold here in Sandy Springs, and he moved to Austell after a divorce, and then he wanted to move back. And it really worked out pretty good, and we had a really good relationship. I'd worked with him on 3 other transactions, and he said, I really want you to do it. I know it's far. Is that a problem with you? I'm like, no, we might do things a little bit differently than I would, you know, when I sold your last house. You may not see me as much. So, you know, we listed, I made a trip out there initially, and I put the sign in the yard, and we didn't have our permanent flyers. We just had the temporary ones. So I FedExed him the flyers, and I had a junior associate do the open houses. And I really didn't go back to the house again until I had to go pick up my sign like after closing. And I was able to not, you know, really spend a lot of time, which is unusual. Usually it seems like I visit our listings a lot more. Like there's an agent here in Dunwoody, I think she puts a sign in the yard. They probably don't see her again until the closing table. You know, we add value by being involved on the front end with all the prep work and renovations and the photography. So we're a lot more involved. But even on the listings, if you set the expectations, it can be a little further away, and you can still do your job and not necessarily be there every single day or popping in. If that answers your question, gives you guys some insight. What else? All right, getting back to our list. So do we think we covered your question, though? Mm-hmm. Getting it right in FMLS and GAMLS. You get all the inputs and everything in there correctly. All this other stuff I'm talking about, and Patsy, you're new to the business, and you know, it used to be like, I've heard this before, like a buyer or even a seller, they're like, okay, we can, since we found the house, you know, the perception is that our job is primarily just finding the house for the buyer, or finding the buyer for the seller for the listing. And I think this whole industry has evolved. You know, we are like pilots on a airliner, and our seller is a passenger on it. And we've got to get from point A, which is they need to sell the house, to point B, which it's sold and they've got their money. And, you know, I've heard it, the analogy in this airline aviation example is that, you know, we're there to get you to your destination with the least amount of turbulence as possible. And there's a good chance we're going to have turbulence. And hopefully my expertise and my office's expertise, and my being involved and being a little bit brighter than the average bear, is going to help you navigate and get there with the least amount of conflict and or pain. And for me, it's really, oftentimes when you list a house, we do all this pre-work and then it's ready, but the majority of the work comes once you get a contract. Negotiating that contract, working through the inspections, holding it together with financing issues. That's where all the work comes in. And oftentimes the consumers, they never really realize that. And up until that, getting that offer or making that offer, on the listing side, really the FMLS and MLS do the majority of the heavy lifting. I mean, you could be successful. You could do all these things I'm talking about and not put it in the FMLS or not put it in correctly, and you're not going to probably sell the house. You could do what like a rookie or hack agent does and put it in the MLS with a couple pictures and even bad descriptions, and there's still a pretty good chance the house is going to get showings and an offer. You can improve that. You experience for your sellers by doing a stellar job and all these extra value-added items that we're talking about. But getting it right in the MLS and getting it priced right, that's gonna do your heavy lifting in the transaction in general. So, and that's a good segue into like discount brokers, because you face those sometimes. It's like, okay, so you're just telling me now that all it has to do is put it in the MLS. And that's where my answer is no, it's after the fact. That's where I think I really shine and my expertise comes into play in getting it across the finish line once contracts come in. Negotiating and dealing with the inspection, dealing with financing. So it isn't just as easy as just putting it in the MLS computer. The thing about, and you gotta be careful because you wanna keep it on a very positive basis. You know, there's a variety of different discount brokers out there, like Rhonda Duffy Realty was one of the larger ones. I think they've been minimized with all these different concepts that are now being rolled out, which we'll talk about in a second. But I have found, and candidly I'll tell a seller, it's not necessarily my position, but I think a lot of agents that work for traditional companies, especially experienced agents, they will do everything in their power not to show those listings. And the reason why is oftentimes the sellers are not motivated. Oftentimes the pricing is not correct. They're doing it to save money, and oftentimes in addition to saving commissions, they ask too much. And the agent who represents a buyer oftentimes ends up having to do all the work that the listing, or a lot of the work that the listing agent would do. Now, I'm not saying that that's true, but that's a perception, I think, amongst agents. So I think a lot of sellers that think that they're just saving money by going to a discount broker, there's some pitfalls that come along with that. And by showcasing your value propositions, all the things that you do, I think it's, in my opinion, it's pretty easy to overcome that. With some people, you may not get through to them, they just may not understand it, and that may be their prerogative. But the whole fact, too, that truth in advertising is, in my opinion, stepped on with those companies, because they imply to the consumer that they'll sell it for less than 1%, like I think Duffy used to say, a $3.95 processing fee and a small percentage. And that's a lead generation tool, because they're not telling sellers in that advertising what.
They're not gonna promote it, they're not marketing it.
You're
No.
not really representing them.
They're not-
Well, they are representing them, but is what they're not telling them in that come-on language. And even at the church, All Saints, we go to school, go to church at, Patsy goes there too, there's an ad from somebody who I don't think is a parishioner sharing that they'll sell the house for like 1.5% or something. They're not telling the whole truth. They're not saying that 9 out of 10 times there's going to be a buyer's agent, that somebody's going to have to pay 3%, or else the house isn't going to get shown, right? So they're not telling the whole truth too, to the public, in my opinion, to the consumer. So, I mean, I'll show any listing if it's the right fit for my buyer, but if there's 3 of them and one of them is like a discount broker, and I know that other baggage that we just discussed comes up, that'd probably be the first one, all other things being equal, that I would eliminate if they don't have the time or energy or whatnot to look at all the properties. We had a question earlier about all these companies out there that are offering to buy properties before they go on the market. Mark Spain guaranteed offer, Open Door, Knock. Now Trilly is doing it. Are you guys hear those ads?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think's going on there?
I think a lowball offering. They'll offer to purchase the home for way less than what the home is worth, so they can resell it.
Right.
And they still take out all their repairs and everything, like repairs, so you still have to account for that cost. And people just like it, it's convenient. If they're in like dire straits and they need to get out because of financial reasons, Or like I've heard, I mean, even people I know have thrown it out into the open, and I'm like, okay, well just list it with me first, and then they give you an offer. That's
Right.
up to you. But if they have pets or if they have kids and it makes showings really difficult, or like some people that have to get relocated and their company doesn't offer, you know, any type of special relocation services, like they have their place in the market, but it's ridiculous.
I
So-
actually think they're a lot worse than it cracked up to be. We called one because we saw a house that we thought, oh, it would be great if we could buy it. These companies say they'd buy a house. First of all, we called Knock and Open Door. Open Door wouldn't even consider us because our price point was too high. They only stop at like 400,000, I think it was. And then Knock, they didn't really buy your house. That was like catching. You're not really savvy. They don't really buy your house. They just hold it and charge you the carrying cost. So if your house like never sells, you're going to be paying carrying costs at like 12% interest or something like that
Right.
for
People just,
who
like,
knows how
click an
long,
easy-
which
the
is
idea of that.
could end up costing you more money in the long run.
So,
That's what we took away from it.
yeah, and if you guys email me, I'll dig it up and send it to you. But Keller Williams agent about a year or two back did an analysis of the property he owned, kind of represented himself as just a pure seller. I don't know if he even told him he was an agent. Maybe it was his wife, in his wife's name or something. I can't remember. Anyway, went through and he did an analysis of three of them, and it was anywhere from 20 to like 60% off what he could have sold it on the market value. So it's called iBuyer, and actually Keller Williams, it's in the works where they're going to have a resource where they're going to do that, because it's really, this is nothing new. There's always been investors that buy property below market value with the intent of reselling it for a profit. And that's what most of these are doing. You know, there's two kinds of real estate investments, residential. There's the flip, which these folks are all doing, and then there's the buy and hold, where you hold it and rent it out, build equity, hopefully a positive cash flow. If you have a mortgage on it, hopefully you're paying that down, so you end up with a nice chunk of equity somewhere down the line. But most of these companies, they're not in it for the long game. They're in it for a short-term profit. And any good real estate investor knows that you make your money on the acquisition, not on the sale, because there's too many things out of your control on the sale to depend on it selling for a certain price to make what you want. So you always got to go with an open eyes and try to acquire at the lowest possible price. Nobody has a crystal ball what the market's going to do, what interest rates are going to do. And I've seen in my 25 years, things change, good and bad, dramatically in short periods of time, and short windows. It does happen. So you've got these companies out there, and they're really no different other than the fact that they've got organized money behind them, hedge funds, Wall Street, Silicon Money Valley, investors, and they've incorporated some technology and some value-added benefits to sellers. Like I think Knox one is you can go out and start looking for your next home and kind of do it simultaneously. But we've seen this over and over in virtually every industry, like FedEx. You're paying a premium for what? Getting something delivered the next day. There's countless services out there where you can pay a premium and have something that is less painful, or get something more than it would otherwise normally cost in normal terms. And that's all this is that they're willing to buy your house if you're willing to pay them a premium. And for certain high equity sellers that, for reasons of their own, do not want to go through the process of prepping and selling their home, it could be a good option to cash out early. But you as agents, you can't, unless you have an investor that's going to come in and do it for you. And some real estate agents do have those investors, and they can be part of the transaction and do it. It's a matter of you finding resources. There's investors that will probably approach you in your career like, hey, I buy houses. If you come across anything good, let me know. I'll let you be my agent. And we'll even include you when we go to sell it. And those are not bad people to get teamed up with. But the reality is that as an agent, you can provide a level of service that can minimize some of those pains, maybe not shorten the time frame dramatically, but just by the fact of pricing it properly and prepping it, you can minimize the amount of time that the house is going to be on the market. You know, pricing is critical. It doesn't matter what condition the house is. Any house that's out there will sell for the right price, no matter how bad a shape it's in, right? You just got to position it right. And, you know, I see that whole concept they're really pushing, and you know, I think when the consumer is educated, it's all about the acquisition price. And as I was telling Patsy, they achieve that, and Rachel, you had it right, they do it through not only the price they offer you, but, and they all have kind of a little bit different models, but they build in repair costs, whether they deduct them on the front end or wherever it's levied in. But they will, you know, they'll come up with a price that's below market value. They charge you for repairs that they say they're going to need to do to sell it. And then oftentimes they add commissions. So you're down here as a seller where you get, you know, market value is here. If you would have priced it at 5 or 10% below market value as a seller, you probably could have sold it really quick and achieved a lot more money, unless you just want to pay for that pure convenience of not having to deal with anything. And I have found, you know, because that's one of the questions we ask, why are you selling? You know, and you drill deeper, but 95 out of 100 times, not why you're selling, but what is the most important thing that you achieve in the sale, 95 out of 100 times, the seller's going to answer getting the most amount of money. So there's, I think, that pool of people that are willing to pay for that convenience. It may be growing, but it still is quite small. So, but we at Keller Williams, they're working on something to provide those resources to do this iBuyer type concept if a seller wants to do that. And that, I don't know when, if and when that's going to get rolled out, but it is being looked at, I've been told. So, any questions on that?
I do have a general question that's not necessarily related to that.
Yep.
All of these things that you teach us about marketing listings and your particular model for your group, how much do you beat the average days on market? Like, do you see yourself consistently beating it by a certain amount, depending on where it is, or you're just...
I mean, you know, and that is one of the things that Keller Williams teaches, to know your numbers. And you know, when you're dealing with a very diverse product, like we'll take condos that are lower end to high end luxury homes. The high end luxury homes are going to typically take longer to sell. You know, lower end, medium price stuff is going to sell quicker. So I haven't calculated those numbers, and as I said, the pricing is really important. Oftentimes we'll work with sellers that we know are motivated, that they have to sell, but we are put in a position where we are pricing it higher than it should be. And it's always their decision. We just counsel and inform clients on what to do, both on the buy side and the sell side. And the sell side is more of you are more of a salesperson because you're selling. On a buy side, I consider myself a total consultant. I don't think I've ever talked anybody into buying a home. I just present information and options and they decide. On the listing side, I kind of changed that hat. I'm more of an advocate for my seller, and I'm promoting its features and benefits, and I'm pushing that storyline to hopefully get some offer, whether it's the other agent or an unrepresented buyer. So when you do have that, and you do work with sellers that you know that are motivated, and ultimately you're going to hopefully be successful in selling it. It just may take a longer time frame through positioning it and getting it to a price that's right. That affects days on market. So there are agents out there that are emphatic, and they're kind of blow and go roll agents, and then they won't take anything that is remotely, if they don't feel like it's priced right, they'll just turn it down emphatically. There's certain agents that kind of have that modus operandus. I'm more of a business person. I'm willing to take calculated risks depending on the motivation of the seller, and that could translate into longer on-market times. But I would say, with that all said, that we still beat the average of all agents by a long shot. I mean, you guys have access, and I think Brad asked me to do the quarterly statistics with him on Tuesday. Every quarter, we present statistics from a third-party statistician. It's a very comprehensive set of statistics on median price, days on market. There's like 10 different data points. Have you guys seen these statistics? Really good, useful tools to use with your sellers that tells the story. And the amazing thing is that even when the market crashed back in like the 2006 and 7, the average days on market for the seller that priced it right didn't exceed like 21 days. It was more like in the teens. So if they priced it right, even in that crash time, the sellers were selling their homes very quickly. The difference then was it could have been, depending on the price point, it was like more like 600 or 800 days if they had to do a price reduction or change agents. So it's all that price relevant information. We've got 20 minutes, so we're not going to get to all this. So I'm just going to go through a couple things here. On your listings, and this answers your question too, partially. See you, Patsy. Super Key Box, showing time and home feedback.com. These are all things that you kind of pay for them. You've got to get a key box. You've got to rent your Super Key. But setting that up properly is another value add. You can set it up through their website so that whenever there's a showing, it notifies you. And you can also put your sellers on there. We've done that on occasion so that they get a text or an email when their property is shown or the Super Box is accessed. Diane can give you information on their website about Supra. Always use that box, is what I tell my sellers. You know, it's designed to go on shackled onto the door. You know I'm talking about the blue Super Boxes. I rarely ever do it unless it was just some kind of place where I feel like it could get stolen, which, you know, anywhere in North Atlanta. I've never really been in a place, I don't list properties where, I mean, if you're in a situation like we had an investment property and we had to put cages around the AC and the appliances, it was a flip that myself and another guy personally did, and the appliances all got stolen, so we got to buy appliances twice. I may not leave the lockbox unattached, but otherwise, and I tell this to the seller as we're setting up the listing, we're going to leave the lockbox out, and you need to make sure it stays out, especially if there's a showing. But in the middle of the day, if you come home and you have to take a shower after you go work out or whatnot, you can bring the lockbox in the house, and nobody can access your house, right? Because you don't have access to the key. And that gives comfort to a lot of sellers, but just make sure they know to put it back out when they do it. That's one of the little talking points I have with sellers. I think that's a good way to handle that. And it has timed access, and unless it's vacant, I have it usually from like 8 in the morning to 8 at night. So it doesn't even work after hours. So having the Super Key Box is important. Showing time, you guys familiar with that and doing your previewing? That's a really cool tool. You know, I used to be opposed to it, but it is a way to manage showings on your listings and also to set up showings for your buyers. And unless it's a vacant house, I always include my sellers in the string. So if a request comes in, it pings not only Kathy and I, but the husband and wife. One of the last listings, we had the teenage daughter, and any one of us can confirm the listing, and it's how you set it up. You can set it up as an email notification, as a text, or a phone call. And it gives them control over the showings, in my opinion. It's versus the agent calls you, can I show it at this time? Then you call the seller, talk to the seller. Seller says yes, you can do it then, or no, can you do it later? Then you got to call back the other agent and say, well, can you do it at 11:30 instead of 10:30? I got to talk to my buyer, I'll call you back. This way, the seller's involved and they can make decisions on the showings. And this is just another value-added serve that you provide to your seller. So I always use that whenever possible to manage the showings. Family had a birthday party and they wanted to block out Saturday. You can go into that showing time and block out a section of time when an agent cannot even request a showing. So it's just a really useful tool. And through both of these, they have feedback systems where you can request feedback from the agents who showed the property. And that's another really important part of the communications with your client, right? Is following up on showings and finding out not only what the buyer thought, but what the agent thought. And there's different ways to do it. Oftentimes you can use these services. You can also just call the agent. You can send them an email. You can text them. There's other paid services you can use. I'm going to skip Home Feedback and Listing Hub. You can click on their links and kind of see more about them. If you get any luxury listings, I'm talking high-end listings, this Lux VT is really cool. I used this on a listing last year, and basically it's real estate marketing, and I think they changed it where there's no setup. Let's see. So they used to have where you paid like $150 setup, and the first time they waived it. But the way they get paid for the services they render is you commit on the front end that if you participate in their marketing, you will pay them a fee at closing, only if it closes. If it doesn't close, you don't owe them anything. And there's two price tiers, like under $750,000, it's like $800, and if it's over that, it's like $1,200 that you pay this company for their marketing services. If you got $1 million listing, you're going to make like 30 grand. Spending $1,200 isn't bad. This can be the difference in you getting the listing or not, is you would use this information on the front end to get the listing. I'm not even sure that's going to really help you get it sold per se, but when you do it, you get a website like I talked about with that agent marketing. You also, the listing is advertised, and it gets advertised not in the print report, but digitally in all these formats: Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Robb Report, etc. There's an international MLS that it pushes it out to with all these websites. And there's a Facebook advertising component. They do a brochure, and you do get a listing presentation, if you team up with these people. So you can get this ahead of time to use to get that listing. They'll give you that on the front end. And it's a pay-at-close option. And let me just see something here, if it's still running. It's pretty cool. This was one of the things that, see if it's still active. To the website. That's pretty powerful when you're sitting down and talking to like a luxury seller. Typically high-end sellers have higher expectations on what you're going to do for them. So what are you going to do to sell my listing? Well, I'm going to put it in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Robb Report. We're going to do a flyover video that leads into a YouTube Marketing video, we're gonna have a specialized property website. Once again, I'm not sure if their model has changed where you pay anything up front, but the bulk of it is only if and when it closes, you spend that money. So you're not gonna use this on everything, but it may be a resource for.
Are they doing the photography and stuff too?
No, they don't do the photography. You would have your Mary Powell pictures, and you would upload those into their system. Now, that whole flyover thing that you saw, that's like a Google Earth thing. They do that. But photographs of the individual property and exterior and whatnot, that you provide those. Got it? So that's for your high-end listings. Aging caravans. Aging caravans, like especially locally here in Dunwoody, we got a good following. We like to do an agent luncheon or some kind of giveaway, something of value to attract people on a Tuesday after team meeting to come look at our listings. And it's just, there's really two purposes for it. Number one, and you can go out and just get like Publix sandwiches, or you can do like $5 Starbucks cards. And we usually have 10 to 15, maybe 20 or 25 if it's a luxury property come by, but it's not that many. And the purpose of doing it is to get exposure, and you promote it through open houses and FMLS, and that pushes it out to Trulia and Zillow and the MLSs, so the agents are aware of it. We have like a database of local real estate agents, and you can send an invitation to them. We do that also. And is what it's really powerful in doing is you get these agents to come by, and you feed them or you give them a gift card, but you ask them to fill out a survey on the property, right? And most specifically, it's really powerful when you don't have that price right. This is, obviously you keep hearing it over and over again. This is like a common theme. Sellers have this predisposition that their house is worth more than everybody else's. They find reasons to justify where it is. And that's great, but we're trying to get it sold. I mean, it's like Groundhog Day, how many people that I've dealt with that just aren't, for one reason or another, their house doesn't apply and it's worth more because they've got like the best contact paper in all the kitchen cabinets. It's like, okay, but it's a common theme, and is what this open house caravan can do to help you out is you get this survey and you ask questions on this 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that you have everybody who visits fill out is, what do you think of the price? And not always, but typically, agents will concur with you. And sometimes they're there and they're asking you, I don't really know this area, what do you think? And you can give them, you can seed the conversation to kind of give them information to understand your perspective. But then you can take these handwritten evaluation sheets where 7 out of 10 of them said that the price shouldn't be $550, it should really be $500. And you go to your seller afterwards and share them and say, look, these are just other agents. They're not even, half of them aren't even Keller Williams agents. But it's their opinion that these things need to be done. We either need to add value by redoing the kitchens and bathrooms, or we need to lower the price to put it in a position where it's going to sell. And it's not you telling them that, it is these other agents, a third party. They're validating what you're saying to them, right? So those agent caravans are real powerful in that regard. They were probably more popular in the past. They're still popular, but we try to support our agents here. If you go to the team meetings, you'll hear them announced. And they're a good thing to do when you have a list. List reports we talked about. Any questions from stuff so far? Any questions in general? Okay. These last things are just things that I use every day to help me in my business. Technology that I found saves a lot of time or makes me more efficient and more effective. Who I'll use is Gmail. If you use Gmail, there's something called canned responses, and it's basically if you're retyping something over and over again, if if you just Google, how do I do a canned response in Gmail, you can do it, so it's like a template, and you click on a button, and you select that one, and it may be something, whatever the message is that you repeat, you do it. And I got a bunch of those for different formats that I use, and I find that to be helpful. Mighty Text was, I showed you that My SMS where I do text from my computer, and your Apple, you have something different. I used to use this, now I use My SMS. Apple's got something different. But it's just a matter of being able to be on your computer and send texts out, and I find that to be very helpful. This is a link to a character count tool. You know, is what's going to happen is when you get an FMLS listing, especially the main description, there's only so many characters. And there's a variety of other fields in real estate when you're inputting things that is character specific. This allows you to paste your text into it, and it counts not just the characters but the spaces in between them and everything. So you can edit in there and get it perfect and then upload it. You got to kind of be a master in FMLS in deciding what things to shrink. I never use the word "and" in my listings when I'm writing out the description. I never put two spaces after a period, which is grammatically what you're supposed to do. Try to conserve those characters so you can talk more about the house, right? So Clouds, Dropbox, and Mega are two places. So we keep like a mirror file, all of our transactions. We have it divided into active buyers, active sellers, the transaction either by the address or the buyer's name, and we try to turn everything into a PDF and keep it on the cloud in Dropbox. I've got access to it from my computer. My wife's computer has access. Not only just access from the web, but like in in here. So here's Dropbox in Windows Explorer. All these transactions, those are like quick links, but I can get to all my stuff, and when I add a file here, it automatically syncs with my wife's computer. If you have an assistant, it can do that. It goes to your phone. So I always have access to all my files, and I just use the free version. I recommended people sign up for it, and I've got a fair amount of space, but I found this other tool called Mega.nz, and it's almost just like Dropbox, only they give you 50 gigabytes for free. And I transfer all of our sold transactions after like 3 months after it closed in there with all the pictures and everything, because it's very space intensive, and I'm not hardly using up any of that. So I encourage you to try to go as paperless as possible. It just simplifies life. Jing is like a snap it thing where you can make pictures, screenshots of your thing and turn them into JPEGs. I think Windows now has a free version of that as part of what they're offering. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? Like if you see something on your computer and you want to capture it and make it something that you can share, you can, well, just go to Jing. You'll see what it does. And then my two, I'll talk about these last and we'll finish, but Grammarly for writing, it's like a no-brainer. It's like having an English teacher standing behind you when you're writing, and it's free. And it's just a great resource to make sure you get your words spelled right and you're not truncating your dangling participles and that kind of stuff, and punctuation right and spelling. And then my last two, and they're completely different products, are Zoom and Loom. Zoom is a video conferencing internet site that you can sign up for free with certain limitations. And here's how I use it and how it's so powerful. If I have a offer that comes in on one of my listings, and I don't have time to go over and meet with myself, and it could be you explaining a buyer offer, it could be whatever you need to explain, I'll set up a Zoom call, I'll invite them to it, we'll be on our computers. I got a webcam in my computer home, all laptops virtually have webcams and microphones. But is what Zoom does, in addition to many other features, is it allows screen sharing. So I can have my picture of my face like kind of framed out in there, can call my seller, I can say, I get them online, I'm looking at their face, I go, let's go over the offer. I click on the file, or I open it up on my computer, and in Zoom, you can click a button and it captures your screen. So you can go through and explain the offer to them like you're sitting there with them. It's actually even better, in my opinion. So this is great, and it's free. You're limited to 40 minutes, I think, on your meeting in the free version, but you can just restart another one after that, or you can pay a nominal amount and get it. I'm thinking about getting the paid version. I like it so much. Has anybody used Zoom? Oh, you love it? Isn't it awesome?
Yeah.
The screen sharing. Who's heard of Loom?
I've never heard of any of these.
So Loom is kind of similar, but it's not interactive. It creates a video. And I just used this last night with a client. And basically you download this is really cool. You download the free app, and then you can do a screenshot. So these are videos that I've actually made, and it'll capture on your computer the screen and cam, and that's the cam, it's like a little picture of you, screen only or camera only. And you can see the microphone's working right there. So once you integrate that, and there is me in the picture, you can send over information on listings. Buyers want you to interpret it as a professional. So this is just a video I did.
This is a follow-up to the conversation we had past earlier. One of the differences for start putting in the video a little bit the helpful with a screenshot. So this is our FMLS data. And I'm going to go through this kind of quickly, but this is some of the things that I look for. When we're doing pricing, try to approach the whole exercise from the buyer's standpoint. The buyer mindset, so we can put ourselves in their shoes.
Is what you need to know is, I'm just talking right there, I have this static, but whenever I change anything on my computer, it's going to change it up here. It's just basically capturing your screen. And so I drilled into, in fact, let me just show you.
And taking a look here at active properties or actively for additional heated.
So I went through this list of comps and looked at the pictures.
So that was the 499, and pretty easy to feel like it's overdone.
So it's free. You can, just as a business tool for communicating with people, when you can explain something and they can see it, it's so much more powerful. And all the times I use this and I've sent information to people, buyers and sellers, they're just blown away that, it's got that personal touch. And it's just a really good tool. I forget where I found it, who turned me on to it, but really like it to just do a better job for clients.
Does the client have to download Loom?
Excuse me?
Does the client have to download Loom to
Can't stop it. No, they don't. Is what you do is you send a link and it just goes in an email and it opens it up. And there's all kinds of functionality. Actually, when somebody views it, it sends you an email. Your Loom video has been watched.
That's good. So
But,
you can go text and text as well? Or
I think you could send, I don't know if you can text it. You could probably copy the link and send it as a text and they could watch it on their phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, getting back to the original.
The reason why I didn't call this now is that price at 465.
You gotta hit the escape button.
I don't know what's going on. So that's the end of the class formally. What questions do you guys have? If any?
That website that you gave us, we'll be able to continuously have access to it, or?
Yeah, I'll leave that up so you can go in there. Like I said, some of those you may need to, some of them are, I have logins, it gives me behind the curtain look at certain things, but at the very least, it'll bring you to their main page so you can kind of get a feel for what it is that I'm trying to share with you.
How do you get access to all the staff's email? Because I get emails from Sotheby's and Remax as well. So how am I able to get access to all those people's emails to do a caravan for one of my listings?
All right. I'm going to show you guys something. If you got a second, it'll take a minute. This will be extracurricular.
It's a Starkville house, so it's a 4-bedroom, 4.5 bath with over 3,000 square feet, and it does have a.
So you can go in to, and that, we're talking about your business as your database. We're talking about buyers and sellers adding to be your database where you touch them. Well, you should also be building that database with other agents, right? And that should be segmented. You should have those categorized or tagged. You can go in here. There's a couple different ways to do this. So if you follow me on this FMLS and you do a search, right? And you do a search and you pick agents. And as what you can see here is it has a variety of different options. Well, you can add additional fields. Like I added zip code, right? So if I put in 30338 and 30346 and 30350. Now this is searching offices, but you can see there's, well, you may not be able to see it, there's 1486 matches. Those are the actual agents, right? You with me? And you can do it by, if you didn't want zip code, you could put city. There's a variety of different things. You could actually go back and if you did the research on the offices you want to target, like the Coldwell Banker one here, the Harry Norman, the Berkshire Hathaway, R. Keller Williams, you could enter that information. But you're accumulating information, your data. So here's all these agents, right? And that's great. It's got their name, it's got their phone number for calling, but it doesn't have their email address. Well, if you go down, and this is something that somebody showed me. You click everybody on the top. You see how I did that? Well, you can't see it, but I clicked the little button up here that made all of these checked, which you can't see. And then you go down to the bottom, and I think this is what how he showed me how to do it. And you go down to the very last entry, the last page, because there was 10 pages of this. And I did that same thing with the very last entry. Pages. So basically you can't see it, but I'm checking all of them here too. And now I click refine. You see that? Actions. How did you do that? I thought I exported that. All right. They may have changed it before you could export it into a spreadsheet. And there still may be a way to do it. You play with it, and it will show. It'll include the agent emails.
Can you add the field on it? You can't do it. Like you add a field when you do a search for home.
Maybe you can. Maybe that's how you did it. Insert column. There you go. Brilliant. So you got an app column, email, there they all are. And then he exported these, and I'm going to get back with him to have him tell me. The worst case scenario is what you can do is you can just select, and it would take, you'd have to do it 10 times and paste it. But the worst case scenario, you can go in here, and you used to be able to just copy and paste.
Probably can. Isn't there an export?
If you copy these, like such, we don't want all that additional info. I selected all those, I copy them, and I paste them into an Excel or a Google Sheets drive. And then you can isolate the names and emails and just paste it right into, like BCC, if it's only like 100 of them, you can just BCC it out of a Gmail to these particular agents. But you can build it into a database.
Same thing.
Yeah, but like, I just people keep getting my email. I don't want to see this listing right now. And I needed to do this because I want to do a caravan.
All right, if you want to do the caravan, let's look at this real quick. So, where's your listing at?
It's in McDonough. I can give you the address.
Let's just do this. I'm going to do a residential search. Is it a house?
Yes,
What area is that, do you know?
McDonough.
What number is it?
Let me look it up. I don't know. I never looked at that number.
All right, well, I'll just do McDonough. Okay. And we're doing the active agents, the pending agents, and the closed in the last 180 days. And that gives us only 2 listings. How can that be?
Something got to be.
Anyway, it doesn't matter how many of it returns. Watch this. This is important. So, no matter how many, you want to have now it's 630 agents. So if you look at the results, check this out. This is really cool. And you go down to, actually you got to select them all. So once again, you're in that selection deal. See this button, export, after you select them, guys? You do that, and then you change the export file format to Toolkit CMA, and you click export. And now, it created this CVS file here. Which is an Excel file, basically. So here's all the data from those listings, but most importantly, you want to get
Were you looking for the emails?
Yeah, did I
You
pass
passed
it?
it, yeah. It was like AE or something like that. Z. Actually, C.
There it is right there, Z. Yeah.
Okay. So you can take and export this and then copy them. You might go through and dedupe them just so you don't send, some people may have more than one listing. But then you just go into your Gmail. It's really simple. You can do this in minutes. And I wouldn't do it as a regular email. I'd do it as a blind carbon copy. But check this out. Compose. You click that BCC, right? You with me? Boom. So you just paste it in, send it to yourself. All the other agents are in there. You write your subject and your send and send the email out. And you've targeted agents that have listings in McDonough.
What's the max that you can put in there though, so that Gmail doesn't kick it out?
I think if you get like over 200, it becomes a problem.
Other people scared me too.
You know? And also, I think it's a function of how long the Gmail address has been in existence too, somebody told me. If it's a brand new address, they don't like people sending out like tons of information. If it's been around for a few years, they give you more discretion when you send out mass emails. So that's how you do that.
Thank you, that's exactly what I mean.
There's a way also to do the other one that's more streamlined.
So how can we get potential sellers' emails from this?
Well, you can go in and do Facebook ads pretty cheap that you can target like a variety of things that are like demographically oriented to somebody selling. And there's all kinds of social media ways to do that. But all right, what else? Is that it? Okay, gang, if you need me, give me a call. All right?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we were supposed to do some wrap up stuff.
Presentation already?
Enhance your learning, make sure you do all your homework, okay? Including your achievements, the ahas, all that
It's
business.
on the paper she did. I think it says Monday or Wednesday next week.
You have more, I have more than enough.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, guys, I really appreciate it. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
It seems like nothing will happen, and all of a sudden it's just gonna break, man, if you just keep your nose to the grindstone and doing those right things. Trust me, it'll all come together.
What's up? I'm so glad you told me that because I finally got my signs. So I'm trying to get my signs, my don't protect me and my pictures. I get my first closing. No, my first closing is going to be the 30th of this month.
Oh, so the lady you took a picture of was in.
She's closing in May.
Oh, so
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like really close, so hey.
Yeah, she's closing in May.
That's how
Yeah.
my mom's sponsor. So it's every step of the way, and I even look
But she basically offered us that we're pretty much done. The only thing we're waiting for is the movie and date and closing.
That was class. Guy's pretty sharp, isn't he?
There's nothing that's gonna pop in.
Do what?
She has her name.
You may get some people coming to you about the list reports.
Okay, good. Well, I just wanted to remind everybody that was here before they got away, there's wine and cheese today
Yeah.
with Brad.
What's his topic?
Profit share.
Profit share.
Bill, how much you make a month in profit share?
Some months I make about $4,000, some $2,000.
$4,000 on what?
For not doing anything, right?
So how
I
did
mean,
you do
that's
that?
passive
Well,
income.
he owns this, right? That's
There's
why.
nothing,
No.
I do have an
No.
interest in it, but that has nothing to do with it.
That's
Everybody else-
separate. That's separate.
So you do a profit sharing class?
Brad's doing it today.
We're doing it today. That's what I'm telling you. I want you guys here today from 4 to 5. We're having wine and cheese too.
It's all about
This thing I gotta get my baby
doing
from school,
business
that's the thing.
with different agents and encouraging them to learn more about Keller Williams.
I did that. I got 2 people.
You sponsored 2 people?
Yeah, I got 2 people sponsored, but I'm trying to get 100. I'm trying to be like him. I
Well,
want to
that's
make
the-
50,000 a year. Just
Well, then you're going to be a poster child. We really need you here. Get somebody to pick up your kids.
I only have like
Okay.
4
Go find
people, I
somebody real
think,
quick.
in my as directly underneath me.